In the most luxurious Western restaurant in Jiaming City, I excitedly handed my girlfriend Rose a house deed. It was a large mansion that I spent $2 million to buy. I expected that she would agree to marry me in surprise. However, she took the house deed, glanced at it coldly, and raised a contemptuous smile at the corner of her mouth. This kind of shabby house, only poor people live in it. What I want is the top mansion in the city center. Lin Chen, from now on, you are dumped by me. Look at yourself, I was willing to be with you only because you looked good in college. Now you are nothing. My heart sank instantly. The woman in front of me turned out to be my girlfriend of nearly 7 years. Then she showed off the brand necklace on her neck. This is a birthday gift given to me by someone. It's worth 100,000 yuan. Can you afford it? I gritted my teeth and said angrily, okay. Since you said so, I hope you won't regret it. After this heartbreaking breakup, my world seemed to have completely collapsed. Love, hope, goals, all were shattered with her departure. Just as I was about to return to the countryside to live out the rest of my life, a piercing system notification sounded, breaking my despair. Life counterattack sign-in success. System? I asked in astonishment, system? What is this? Hi everyone, don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. Yes, host. From now on, you can get a big gift package by signing in every day. The system explained. Every day? There was a glimmer of surprise in my eyes. Today's sign-in gift package has been refreshed successfully. The system's voice continued to sound. I couldn't wait to sign in, and the system's electronic voice immediately announced, "Congratulations host, you have signed in successfully. You have obtained permanent ownership of Jinyuan Commercial Street." My heartbeat quickened instantly. Jinyuan Commercial Street. This is the most luxurious area in Shanghai, with 250,000 square meters of office buildings and shops, and the rent is staggeringly high. Just as I was shocked by this shocking turn of events, the phone rang. Hello, is this Mr. Lin Chen? It's me. Hello, I am Wu Ming, the general manager of the property management of Jinyuan Commercial Street. I need your signature regarding the transfer of ownership of the commercial street and the rent for this quarter. Is it convenient for you now? After hanging up the phone, my heart was pounding. I immediately called a taxi and headed straight for Jinyuan Commercial Street. My life seemed to have completely turned around at this moment. The loss and indifference of the past have now become the starting point of my success. What surprises will be waiting for me tomorrow? At the same time, Wu Ming was puzzled, thinking to himself, what is the background of this new boss? He has just graduated from college for half a year, and he can buy Jinyuan Commercial Street? He can't be a rich kid from some family? I hope he is not difficult to serve. I soon arrived at the commercial street and saw the towering Jinyuan building from afar, which is one of the landmarks of Shanghai City. When I stood in front of the door and prepared to call Wu Ming, I suddenly saw a familiar figure, my ex-girlfriend Rose and her new boyfriend. When she saw me, she frowned, walked up to me, and said sternly, Lin Chen, what are you doing here? I have clearly rejected you, how can you be so shameless to follow me and come here to harass me? I couldn't help but frown, feeling extremely annoyed by her vanity. The eyes of the people around me gradually turned to me, with a somewhat strange expression. Zhao Tianxiao stepped forward and said jokingly, you are my senior? Ha, I am Zhao Tianxiao, and Oncon Technology in Jinyuan Building is my company. I wonder where you work now. I knew he had learned from his ex-girlfriend Rose that I had just lost my job, and his eyes were full of contempt. My ex-girlfriend Rose also took the opportunity to laugh at me. Brother Zhao, don't tease him, he's just a vagrant who just lost his job. People around me started pointing and talking at me, as if they were looking at a complete loser. Some even said loudly, this guy is dressed quite well, but he is actually a homeless person? No wonder he was dumped. Facing their comments, I smiled calmly and looked at my ex-girlfriend Rose and Zhao Tianxiao. Ex-girlfriend Rose, don't take yourself too seriously. I came to you? Ha, that's ridiculous. I then looked at Zhao Tianxiao's dark circles and said half-jokingly, but, brother, I want to ask you, your eyeshadow is really special. The moment Zhao Tianxiao finished speaking, his expression suddenly changed, and he almost exploded with anger. Boy, you are looking for death. His voice was full of threats. The people around him also began to look very strange, because Zhao Tianxiao's dark circles, which were almost as dark as ink, were really unusual. Zhao Tianxiao was furious and ordered the security guard, "Security, if this guy dares to enter the building, throw him out." I sighed helplessly, took out my cell phone and called Wu Ming. As soon as the call was connected, Wu Ming's voice came respectfully, "Mr. Lin, are you here?" "Well, I'm here. But someone asked the security to take action against me. As soon as I enter the door, I will be thrown out," I said lightly. Wu Ming's back suddenly broke out in a cold sweat, and he clearly felt that the situation was serious. He said anxiously, "Mr. Lin, please wait a moment, I will come downstairs to pick you up right away." My ex-girlfriend Rose next to me looked a little disdainful. "Lin Chen, what are you trying to show off now? Do you think you are the president of the company?" I just looked at her coldly without saying anything. Zhao Tianxiao sneered, took out 2 banknotes and threw them to the security guard. "Remember, if this person dares to take a step, kick him out." The security guards looked even more serious. Zhao Tianxiao looked at me provocatively, "I want to see how you can get in." At the same time, Wu Ming hurried to the elevator door and ran into Zhao Yuan, the chairman of Oncon Technology. Zhao Yuan saw his panic and asked, "Mr. Wu, what's wrong?" "Mr. Zhao," Wu Ming said quickly, "you are in good time now. Can you wait a moment for the rent question? I am on my way to meet the new boss, and I will introduce you to him while I am here." Zhao Yuan's face changed, and he was obviously shocked by the news that the owner of Jinyuan Commercial Street had changed. He knew that this might mean a rent adjustment in the future. Especially for tenants like them who rented a whole floor, once the rent was raised, the monthly expenses would increase significantly. At this time, the two of them had reached the first floor of the building. Wu Ming ran out anxiously. Zhao Tianxiao saw this scene, and his heart was filled with pride. He turned around and sneered at me, "If I were you, I would have left long ago. The new general manager is here, and if he sees an unemployed vagrant like you, he might send you directly to the police station." The eyes around me were full of amusement and ridicule. But I remained calm. Zhao Tianxiao's anger reached its peak, and at this moment, Wu Ming finally rushed out. Zhao Tianxiao immediately shouted, "Uncle Wu, this guy is my girlfriend's ex. He is here to make trouble, let the security guard throw him out." When I walked out of the office, I still felt my heart beating faster. Wu Ming's expression suddenly became serious. He took a deep breath and said to me with uneasiness, "Zhao Yuan, take care of your son." He bowed deeply to me and said respectfully, "Mr. Lin, I'm very sorry that I'm late." At that moment, the whole scene fell into shocked silence. People who originally thought I was a vagrant were now stunned by my sudden appearance. Zhao Tianxiao and his ex-girlfriend Rose were stunned, and Zhao Yuan was furious. He slapped Zhao Tianxiao mercilessly and shouted angrily, "You bastard! How dare you offend Mr. Lin?" Zhao Tianxiao was stunned, tears welling up in his eyes. "Dad, you hit me? You have never hit me before, but now you hit me because of him?" Zhao Yuan was furious. "Do you think Lin Chen is a small fry? He is the owner of Jinyuan Commercial Street, with an annual rent of 4 billion. And you dare to call him a youngster?" This statement was like a bombshell, instantly detonating the entire audience. Everyone turned to look at me, their eyes filled with astonishment and awe. It turned out that I was not only a wealthy boss, but also the real controller of Jinyuan Commercial Street. Ex-girlfriend Rose screamed in disbelief, "How is this possible? He is just a poor unemployed vagrant." Wu Ming responded coldly, "Mr. Lin is indeed the owner of Jinyuan Commercial Street, and all property rights belong to him." My ex-girlfriend Rose turned pale, full of shock and regret. She realized that if she had not underestimated me, she might have become a wealthy wife now. However, it was too late, and her heart was filled with endless regret. She decided to give it a try, and walked up to me and said, "Lin Chen, I was wrong before. I am willing to kneel down and beg you to get back together." I looked at her coldly, with disgust in my heart. "Can I go in now?" The security guards greeted me humbly. "Mr. Lin, please come in. I hope there won't be any more eyesores at the door," I said, and walked straight into the building. The two security guards walked towards Rose and Zhao Tianxiao and asked coldly, "You too, Mr. Lin doesn't want to see you. Do you want to leave on your own accord, or do you need us to escort you away?" Zhao Tianxiao turned away with a gloomy face. His ex-girlfriend Rose stood up awkwardly and tried to follow Zhao Tianxiao, but he slapped her in anger. She wandered helplessly in the wind with a face full of resentment. This time, she really lost both the wife and the army. Wu Ming and I took the elevator to the top floor office of Jin Yuan Commercial Street. Zhao Yuan's face became paler and paler. The news he just received from me made him feel desperate. The rent problem of Oncon Technology has now been completely revealed by me. Zhao Yuan was anxious and knew that the rent problem this time would be a fatal blow to the company. He planned to go home to deal with this disaster, but he did not expect to severely punish Zhao Tianxiao at home. Screams and curses were heard one after another at home. Zhao Tianxiao was suffering severe punishment. At the same time, I walked into the top floor office of Jin Yuan Commercial Street. This is an entire area on the 109th floor, and you can overlook the entire Zhanghai city from the panoramic floor-to-ceiling windows. Wu Ming respectfully handed me a cup of coffee and handed me the financial information for the first half of the year. I looked calm on the surface, but I was shocked by the financial situation of Jin Yuan Commercial Street. Wu Ming gave a detailed introduction to the Jin Yuan Commercial Street. There are 328 shops here, including an indoor pedestrian street and a 5-story shopping mall, with a cinema on the 6th floor. The quarterly rent of the shopping mall and the pedestrian street is as high as 750 million yuan. The rental structure of Jin Yuan building is complex, with scattered rentals from floors 2 to 30 earning 10.2 million yuan per quarter, hotel rents from floors 31 to 35 earning 2 million yuan per quarter, and the entire rental of the 105th floor is as high as 23.8 million yuan. All added up, the total revenue for the entire quarter exceeded 1.08 billion yuan. While Wu Ming was giving a detailed introduction, my cell phone rang. The balance on the screen satisfied me greatly: 1,080,001,350.83 yuan. This huge transfer filled me with confidence. I said to Wu Ming calmly, "From now on, the management of this building will be handed over to you. There is no need to publicize my appointment." Then, Wu Ming nodded and quickly left the office. I stood in the spacious office, looking across the entire Jin Yuan Commercial Street. I knew that the step I had just taken would completely change the business landscape of this city. After leaving the office, I took the elevator, still thinking about what happened just now. I couldn't help but laugh when I saw Wu Ming wiping his sweat as he left. His surprise and confusion surprised me a little, but I was more secretly satisfied. When I sat alone in this luxurious office, I felt mixed emotions and excitement. Looking around, the leather chairs, expensive calligraphy and paintings, and the dazzling array of red wine in the corner made me feel like I was dreaming. I looked down at the balance in my bank account, and the number of 1,080,001,350.83 yuan flashed on the screen. I couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. This amount of money was indeed an incredible fortune, just one quarter's rent. So much money, how should I spend it? I muttered to myself, feeling extremely excited and expectant. I knew that this was just the beginning, and future sign-in rewards might be even better. What I needed to do was not only to adapt to this new identity, but also to readjust my image. So I decided to pick out a suitable outfit. I walked out of the Jin Yuan building and went to a nearby Versace store, but found that the design styles were not suitable for me. I left with nothing. Finally, I walked into the Armani store, hoping to find a style that suits me better. In the Armani store, the appearance of waitress Lu Lily caught my eye. Her standard oval face and ponytail gave people a capable and fresh feeling. Her smile and attitude made me feel very comfortable. "Sir, welcome to Armani, how can I help you?" Her voice was sweet and kind. I nodded. I'm planning on buying some clothes, please help me with some t-shirts first. After her introduction, I picked out a gray t-shirt for 2,300 yuan. I was a little surprised, but I quickly made a decision, pack this one for me. Lu Lily was a little stunned. Sir, don't you want to try it? No, just pack it up. I shook my head, feeling that her reaction was a little too surprising. She had obviously never seen such a generous customer. After that, I took a fancy to another piece of clothing priced at 2,888 yuan and asked for it to be packed. This time, Lu Lily reacted and obviously knew that I was not an ordinary customer. Okay. She stuttered as she dealt with the bill. It seemed that I really was the god of wealth she met. Soon, I changed all the clothes in the Armani store and looked at myself with satisfaction. This new outfit significantly improved my temperament, from a poor loser to a tall, rich and handsome man. After checking out, I said to Lu Lily, by the way, how about we add each other on WeChat? I can ask you if I have any questions about washing clothes in the future. Lu Lily blushed and nodded in agreement. We added each other on WeChat and I left the store. The other salespeople in the store looked at Lu Lily with jealousy and envy. Lily, you really found a treasure this time, they teased. Lu Lily was a little shy, but a sense of anticipation surged in her heart. Although she smiled and shook her head, she had already begun to look forward to the possibilities of the future. Clothes make the man, saddles make the horse. I sighed secretly. New identity, new outlook, I know this is just the beginning of my journey to a business empire. After I left the office, carrying the shopping bags, I still felt a little shaky. I now had an extra $1 billion, but I didn't know how to handle this sudden wealth. After I got home, I threw all the bags aside, lay on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. It was good to have more money, but I had no way to share this surprise and excitement. Thinking that I could finally provide my parents with a comfortable environment for their later years, I decided to bring them here to live. At the same time, it was time to buy a car. Don't tell them right away. I thought to myself, after all, I haven't found a suitable excuse for the source of this huge sum of money. Time passed quietly and the sky gradually darkened. I had a casual dinner and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, I was awakened by the system's voice. Ding! Today's gift package has been refreshed successfully, please sign in to receive it. Receive it. I responded without thinking much. The system's voice immediately sounded, congratulations to the host, you have successfully signed in. Obtained, Pagani Wind God. This really makes my heart beat faster. Pagani Wind God. A supercar worth hundreds of millions. Yesterday I was still considering whether to buy a car today, and now the system has given it to me. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. Just as I was sighing, my cell phone rang. It was the manager of the Pagani 4S store calling. Hello, are you Mr. Lin Chenlin? Yes, it's me. Mr. Lin, I'm Yu Shang, the manager of Pagani 4S store. The Pagani Wind God you ordered has arrived at the store. Do you have time to pick up the car today? Okay, send me the address and I'll be there right away. After hanging up the phone, I let out a long breath, feeling grateful for the generosity of the system. I casually checked the address of the 4S store and went out to take a taxi. On the way, I stopped a taxi and said to the driver, Master, let's go to the Pagani 4S store on Tianhai Road. The driver looked at me and asked in confusion, Young man, are you going to buy a car? Well, I just went to take a look. I said casually. After all, Pagani cars are so expensive, and a young man like me who is dressed like this does not seem to be able to afford it. It's good to go and have a look. As a young man, it's beneficial to see the world. The driver continued, I hope to buy a small BMW in my lifetime. I smiled and said, Master, come on. The car soon arrived at the Pagani 4S store, and when I walked in, the atmosphere in the store immediately changed. Manager Yu Shang hurried out with a look of awe and excitement on his face. Mr. Lin, welcome. The employees in the store were also alarmed and started discussing. Oh my God, Mr. Lin is here. Really? That's our only Pagani Huayra. Hurry up, prepare for the reception. In this warm welcome, I felt unprecedented respect and attention. Looking at the busy employees in the store, I knew that today was destined to be an extraordinary experience. I picked up a few clothes in the store and went straight to the checkout counter. Pack these up. The staff member looked shocked, but quickly responded and reported the amount. The total is 37,300 yuan. How are you going to pay? WeChat, I said, opening the payment code. After paying, I said to the clerk Lu Lily, let's add each other on WeChat. I can ask you if I have any questions about the clothes in the future. Lu Lily blushed slightly and nodded. After I left the store, I put on my new clothes and felt like a different person. This set of clothes really made me look more elegant, and I didn't look that shabby before at all. Amid the envious eyes of the Armani store employees, I gathered myself and prepared to face more challenges and changes. I stood in front of the Pagani 4S store, feeling extremely excited. Just now in the taxi, I was just an ordinary young man, but now, I want to be a part of this world of luxury cars. Inside the 4S store, everything looks so grand and luxurious. The car stopped and I scanned the bill the driver gave me, 56.4 yuan, and gave him 56 yuan, thinking in my heart that this money was just a small matter for me. The driver looked at me walking towards the 4S store with disbelief in his eyes, as if what I was about to show him was his dream. When I walked to the front of the store, I saw several saleswomen eagerly approaching me. They looked as if they had seen a god, and the excitement and anticipation in their eyes could not be concealed. My appearance instantly raised the atmosphere in the store. They looked at me, Lin Chen, with awe and curiosity. I nodded slightly, and saw one of the managers, Yu Sheng, immediately approaching me and respectfully introducing herself. She was wearing a neat suit, with delicate makeup, a pretty face, and extraordinary temperament. Her eyes were filled with undisguised surprise and respect, because she knew that I was the mysterious rich second generation who spent a huge amount of money to buy this limited edition supercar. Mr. Lin, welcome. Her tone was respectful and a little awe-inspiring, which made me feel an unprecedented sense of superiority. I nodded casually, but I felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction in my heart. I used to think that having money does not necessarily bring happiness, but now I understand that this kind of top-notch treatment and luxurious experience cannot be bought with any money. Yu Sheng led me to the showroom, where my Pagani Wind God was already set up. Walking into the showroom, I looked at the supercar worth hundreds of millions, and I was very excited. The car was flawless, like a work of art. Although I kept a calm face, my heart was already surging with excitement. Yu Sheng stood aside, her eyes sparkling with curiosity and surprise. She gently asked, Mr. Lin, what do you think? Her tone revealed a bit of expectation, as if she was waiting for me to give a surprising evaluation. I got into the car, touched the exquisite leather steering wheel and seats, and couldn't suppress the excitement in my heart. Although I tried to stay calm, my heart was churning. I nodded gently and replied lightly, well, not bad. At this moment, Pagani Huayra is not just a car, it symbolizes that I have reached a whole new level from an ordinary person. Seeing my nonchalant attitude, Yu Sheng's eyes flashed with surprise and admiration. She could no longer explain my behavior with common sense. After all, facing such a luxurious supercar, anyone would show excitement. The atmosphere in the Pagani 4S store was like a grand banquet. Everyone was nervous and excited. After all, the legendary super-rich second generation, Lin Chen, was finally coming. As the gold master in the eyes of those salesmen, his arrival was like a heavy bomb, which accelerated people's heartbeats and made them look forward to it. Mr. Lin, welcome. When I walked into the store, Yu Sheng and her team came forward respectfully as if they were VIPs. Their eyes were full of admiration and awe, and I smiled calmly, but felt a little proud in my heart. When she first called me, Yu Sheng seemed to have misjudged my age. She thought I might be in my 30s, but today she discovered that I was only in my early 20s. Seeing that I was so young, yet could spend hundreds of millions to buy a car, her curiosity and surprise deepened. I walked into the showroom, Yu Sheng followed me, her charming figure attracted some attention. But at this moment, I only had the super sports car that was about to be unveiled, Pagani Huayra. Finally, the Pagani wind god showed its majesty in front of me. The body was as smooth as a mirror, and the leather seats and steering wheel inside the car made people feel luxurious at the touch. I couldn't wait to start the engine, and the roar of the steel behemoth echoed in the empty exhibition hall, which made my heart tremble. As I drove out of the showroom, I felt a control I had never experienced before. The car's handling was superb, and any slight movement would make it respond precisely. Compared to the Volkswagens I had driven before, it was a world of difference. The attention of the traffic made me feel proud, but I pretended to be indifferent, but there was a smile on the corner of my mouth that I could not hide. When I drove into the street, all eyes were drawn to this Pagani. There were endless voices of admiration and amazement. Is this a Pagani Huayra? Limited to 20 units worldwide. Is there a rich man who is so rich? These whispers filled me with a little pride. Chapter 12, An Unexpected Reunion. While I was enjoying this glorious moment, I drove to the vicinity of Jinyuan Commercial Street and prepared to find a place to have lunch. After parking the car, I walked into the restaurant. Not long after, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Boss, give me a bowl of noodles." I turned around and found that it was Lu Lily. She seemed to recognize me, with a look of surprise on her face. "Mr. Lin? What a coincidence." We chatted, and Lu Lily told me that she was taking a leave to rest. I joked, "Since we met, don't take a taxi. I'll take you home." She hesitated for a moment, but I insisted, "It's okay, it's just on the way." Finally, she agreed. We walked to the parking lot and were about to leave when the window of a black Audi A8 slowly rolled down and a burly man walked out and walked straight towards Lu Lily. I noticed the shock and nervousness on Lu Lily's face. She whispered to me, "This is Fong Lin. He bought clothes from my store some time ago and has been pestering me ever since. I asked for leave today to avoid him, but I didn't expect to meet him here." After hearing this, my eyes narrowed slightly, and a trace of uneasiness rose in my heart. Obviously, this Fong Lin is not an ordinary customer. His appearance may mean some unknown secrets. I observed quietly, thinking about all the variables that may happen in the future. In the shadow of the parking lot, Fong Lin's aggressiveness was particularly glaring. His self-righteous smile was mercilessly exposed by me. I turned to Lu Lily and said lightly, "In this case, leave it to me. I will help you get rid of this guy's entanglement." Lu Lily was stunned, and obviously couldn't react immediately. Fong Lin had already walked up to Lu Lily arrogantly, holding a bouquet of flowers, and pretended to be a gentleman and said, "Lily, are you waiting for me? These flowers are for you. I have booked a French meal at number 3 on the Bund tonight. The chef has launched a new dish. You must come." Lu Lily's expression suddenly became serious. She had long been fed up with Fong Lin. "Mr. Fong, I have no interest in you. Please stop pestering me." Fong Lin's face darkened, and his anger turned into a threat. "You are so shameless. I have been pursuing you for half a month, and you still don't appreciate it? You have to go today no matter what, otherwise." Before he finished speaking, Fong Lin's violent tendencies were revealed. I interrupted and said, "You want to fight in the parking lot? There are surveillance cameras here." Fong Lin was stunned for a moment, obviously not expecting me to warn him like this. He looked me over, and seeing that I wasn't dressed luxuriously, he sneered, "Who do you think you are? How dare you interfere in my business? Get out of here." I smiled coldly. "You are going to do something to a woman, and I can't control it? Can't you see that she doesn't care about you at all?" Fong Lin was obviously a little annoyed. He pointed at the black Audi A8 behind him and said proudly, "Look at this car. I just paid for it in full. People like you can't even afford the down payment." I nonchalantly replied, "Audi A8? Is that so great? I have a car, too." Fong Lin chuckled when he heard this. "My top-of-the-line car costs 1.35 million. Do you have a car? Take it out and let me see if you dare to smash it on the spot." I smiled gently, took out the car key, and pressed the button. At that moment, the lights of the Pagani wind god lit up, the two doors slowly rose, and the entire underground garage instantly became quiet, with only the dazzling luxury car flashing under the lights. Fong Lin's smile froze. He stared at the supercar in shock and was speechless. Lu Lily also stood there in a daze. Although she didn't know the specific value of the car, she could intuitively feel that the car was extraordinary. I leaned over and looked at Fong Lin, my face full of teasing. Come on, didn't you say you wanted to smash the car? Go ahead and smash it. Fong Lin's face instantly turned from red to blue. He looked up at me, the corners of his mouth twitching. Ha ha, misunderstanding, all misunderstanding. I replied coldly, remember, don't talk nonsense if you don't have the ability in the future. Otherwise, if you offend someone you shouldn't offend, no one can save you. After that, I pulled Lu Lily towards the Pagani Fengshan and started the car. Before leaving, I rolled down the window and said to Fong Lin, Junjiang Life Insurance is in Jin Yuan building? Tell your father that I will bring you to apologize in 3 days. My name is Lin Chen. Before I finished speaking, I stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away, raising a cloud of dust, leaving Fong Lin standing there blankly, his face full of helplessness and embarrassment. Fong Lin quickly picked up the phone and dialed his brother Fong Sheng's number. On the other end of the phone, Fong Sheng's voice was rough. What? Someone snatched the girl you liked? And let our father take you to apologize? This kid is really brave. Fong Lin hurriedly explained, brother, this Lin Chen is driving a Pagani Fengshan. Fong Sheng's voice was somewhat cold. Pagani wind god? There are only 20 of that car in the world. Do you believe he really has that car? It must be a fake. Don't worry, I will find someone to help you vent your anger in the next few days. After hanging up the phone, Fong Lin was filled with doubts and uneasiness. What kind of person is Lin Chen? Why is he so arrogant? How did this Pagani Fengshan become a part of him? I drove my Pagani Fengshan towards the Xingfu community. Lu Lily next to me looked a little reserved, as if she was nervous about the next arrangement. In order to break this atmosphere, I couldn't help but smile and said lightly, why? Why are you so nervous? I won't eat you. She smiled awkwardly, then whispered, what happened just now? Oh, just now, I smiled, I held your hand in a hurry. If I offended you, I apologize in advance. Lu Lily was stunned for a moment, then shook her head and said, no, I want to thank you, really, thank you very much for helping me. Ha, it's nothing, it's fun to help others. I said, feeling relaxed. After all, helping others is also a pleasant thing. By the way, she glanced at me, your car should be quite expensive, right? I smiled faintly, this car? It's not expensive. Lu Lily seemed to relax a little, but when she heard me casually say, the landing price is only about 100 million. Her face froze instantly. 100 million? She couldn't believe the car's price was so staggering. She felt embarrassed for a moment, fearing that she would damage the car if she touched it even slightly. Ha, it's not expensive. She smiled awkwardly, but her heart was in turmoil. I can understand her shock. After all, it is incredible to be able to say 100 million so casually. Soon, we arrived at the gate of Xingfu community. I got out of the car and politely escorted her into the community, then I got back in the car and drove to my own community. Lu Lily's friend saw her getting out of the car and said in surprise, oh my god, Lily, you're hooking up with a rich guy, right? That car looks like it's worth tens of millions at least. Lu Lily blushed slightly and quickly explained, Yuan, he is just my client. He happened to be on his way today, so he sent me back. Hey, what can I say to you, Lily? Do you think someone who can afford a car like this would live around here? It's obvious that he's interested in you. You better seize the opportunity and don't let him get away. These words made Lu Lily silent for a moment, and finally she said, okay, I don't want to talk about it anymore. She waved her hand and hurried upstairs. After returning to the community, I parked the car and walked into the house. Just then, my cell phone rang. It was my mother calling. "Mom," I answered the phone. "Chen, are you busy?" There was a hint of concern in her voice. "No, I'm just taking a break," I replied, not wanting to talk about my recent work situation. "Oh, that's good. Actually, it's like this. Your uncle's Jingjing is coming to Shanghai with a few friends, and we need your help to make arrangements." I was a little surprised. Our family is not actually wealthy, and my mother's family has always looked down on us. But now that I have the ability to make my family look respectable, I am naturally happy to help. "Okay, I got it. I'll make the arrangements then. When will my cousins come over?" "Probably in the next 2 days, your cousin will contact you then." After my mother said that, she gave me a few instructions and then hung up the phone. After hanging up the phone, I transferred 100,000 yuan to my family's card. Although I knew I couldn't transfer too much, I still hoped to add a little luster to my family. Not long after, my father saw the extra 100,000 yuan in his account and jumped up from the sofa in surprise. "Old woman, come over here and take a look." "What's wrong?" Mother came over. "There's suddenly an extra 100,000 yuan on the card. Did someone transfer it by mistake?" The mother rolled her eyes and said, "Your son gave this to you. He has a small business now, and this is a gift to you as a filial gift." When my father heard this, his surprise gradually turned into joy, and he decided to show off to his friends. My mother planned to share the good news with a few close friends. I knew nothing about this and was thinking about what to prepare. After all, my cousin was going to bring her friends over, and my Pagani wind god was obviously not enough, and there were also problems such as accommodation. Just then, my WeChat rang, and I found that it was my cousin's friend request to add me. Reading this news, I couldn't help but feel a little excited. The phone rang. It was a message from my cousin Yi Jingjing. "Brother, third aunt should have told you that my bestie and I, along with a few friends, are going to Shanghai to play in 3 days." I immediately replied, "I see, have you booked your tickets?" The other party quickly replied, "Not yet." I suddenly decided to help them arrange it myself. I replied, "Send me your ID information and I will book the tickets." She immediately sent me her ID information. I quickly booked their first-class tickets. I thought it was a piece of cake to give my cousin some face. After booking the tickets, I thought to myself, it seems I have to find a secretary. So I opened the senior talent recruitment website and started screening resumes. It didn't take long before I found a particularly attractive resume. Name, Chen Ziruo. Age, 23. Education, Master of Business and Master of Economics, Trinity College, Cambridge University. At the age of 23, she already has 2 master's degrees. She is a genius among geniuses. I decided to contact her immediately. When I called her, Chen Ziruo's voice was slightly alert. "Hello, is this Chen Ziruo? I saw your resume on the recruitment website." "Yes," she replied. I smiled and said, "I know you already have a job, but please listen to my terms. I am willing to give you double your annual salary." "What? Double?" She was obviously a little shocked. "Are you a liar?" I patiently explained, "You can choose a time and place, and we can meet and talk." Chen Ziruo thought for a moment and said, "Okay, then see you at Ligang restaurant in half an hour." Chapter 18, The Beginning of the Storm. I straightened my clothes and walked downstairs. There was already a crowd of people around me. Everyone was amazed. "What kind of car is this? Pagani Huayra? It's worth 100 million. Looking at this situation, I sighed in my heart. It seems that I need to change to a more low-key residence and car. At this time, 2 young people were taking pictures next to the car, obviously full of curiosity about my car. I walked over and found a random electric bike to sit on, ready to wait for them to finish taking pictures. Unexpectedly, the young man who was taking pictures suddenly yelled at me, "What are you doing? Are you trying to steal the electric bike?" I frowned. "I'm just waiting for you guys to finish taking the photo." "Then where the hell are you going to sit?" the young man shouted angrily. I responded coldly, "This car is mine, you are blocking my way." The crowd gasped and whispered, "This car actually belongs to this guy?" The two of them suddenly became extremely awkward, and the young man was stunned. The woman next to him began to act coquettishly, winking at me, "Handsome guy, do you need a girlfriend?" I replied bluntly, "No need." Seeing this, the woman said more anxiously, "Handsome man, am I not beautiful enough?" I smiled coldly, "Beauty is just a drop of water. Without makeup, you're all a ghost." After saying that, I closed the car window, started the car, and quickly left the community. Watching me leave the car, the woman's face was full of disappointment. She turned around, looked at the angry young man, took his arm and said with a smile, "Husband, let's go home." The young man's face turned pale, and he slapped the woman, breaking her nose. The crowd around him screamed in shock, and the scene became chaotic, eventually attracting the police. I knew nothing about this and had already arrived at Ligang Restaurant, ready to meet Chen Ziruo. Outside the door of Ligang Restaurant, the small parking lot was full of luxury cars. The most common one was worth more than 1 million. However, the moment I drove the car into the parking lot, the eyes of the two carboys immediately lit up. The momentum of this car made them feel that all the luxury cars they had seen before were eclipsed. I parked the car, got out of the car, handed the car keys to one of the valet, and gave a few bills as a tip. The valet was obviously shocked by my generosity, and their impression of me immediately improved. I then entered the restaurant. After ordering a small private room, I waited for Chen Ziruo to arrive. She arrived quickly at the time agreed upon on the phone. When she walked into the room, I could see her surprise. She obviously didn't expect that I was so young and could afford such an expensive car. "Hello, I'm Lin Chen." I introduced myself with a smile. Although Chen Ziruo was surprised at my age, he quickly put away his surprise and responded politely, "Hello, Mr. Lin." We sat down and started talking. I praised her a little, "Miss Chen, you are even prettier than the photo on your resume." Chen Ziruo smiled, and then asked impatiently, "Mr. Lin, what do you want to hire me for?" "Actually, I want to hire you as my personal secretary." "What?" Chen Ziruo's eyes widened instantly. As a double master's degree holder from Cambridge Trinity College, she felt that being a private secretary was an insult to her. She felt strongly dissatisfied, but she tried to control her emotions. Just as she was about to refuse, there was a knock on the door of the private room. The car boy came in with the car keys. I took the car keys and asked casually, "Miss Chen, what did you say just now?" Chen Ziruo's eyes instantly became bright, and when she saw the keys to the Pagani function, the anger in her heart immediately dissipated. She was stunned, realizing that the person in front of her was a top rich or powerful person. "By the way, you'll start work tomorrow." I continued, "The salary is based on what you wrote on your resume, 2 million per year, and the other benefits are also very generous. The only requirement is that you must be on call at any time." "I understand, Mr. Lin." Chen Ziruo agreed immediately, and her attitude became particularly humble. She knew that being able to cooperate with such a wealthy person would be a huge leap in her career. I smiled and continued, "There is 5 million in this card. Use it as a backup. Someone will come to my house in 3 days. You need to prepare a low-key business car, book a lunch table and a presidential suite in a 5-star hotel." Chen Ziruo nodded and left with a satisfied smile. I returned home, tidied up a little, and then opened a game and didn't fall asleep until late at night. The next morning, I got up early to prepare for the reward for my third sign-in. What will today's sign-in reward be? I murmured excitedly in my heart, rubbing my hands and waiting for the system's answer. I was very satisfied with the rewards of the previous 2 days, and I didn't expect how good luck would come today. "System, sign in!" I shouted impatiently. "Congratulations to the host, you have signed in successfully. You have obtained a perfect body." "Ha!" I was stunned. Perfect body? What's the use of that? The system's words seemed confusing, but it then issued a new prompt, "Perfect body is being distributed, please be prepared." Just as I was wondering, a warm current quickly spread through my body, followed by a strong feeling of fatigue. I didn't even have time to react before I fainted. Time passed slowly until noon, when I was woken up by the ringing of my cell phone. I answered the phone in a daze, and my voice was still sleepy. Hello? Boss Lin, I'm Chen Ziruo. The work you arranged has been completed, and the total cost is 2.23 million. Also, Manhwa Securities in our building is going to hold a cocktail party. Will you attend? The cocktail party of Manhwa Securities? I see. I will go then. By the way, get ready and you can be my female companion. I said casually. Chen Ziruo on the other end of the phone was obviously shocked. What? What's wrong? Go to the commercial street to pick out an evening dress and include the money in your work expenses. I hung up the phone and thought to myself, since I'm going to a cocktail party, I must have a female companion. I looked at the time on my phone and realized that I had been asleep for so long. I was unconscious for so long? I was surprised, and then I remembered the perfect body I had when I signed in. I stood up impatiently, took off my shirt, and walked to the mirror wearing only shorts. I looked so different in the mirror. The fat on my belly disappeared, replaced by 8 solid abdominal muscles. My skin became tight and strong, and I exuded an unprecedented masculine aura. Wow! This is amazing! I said to myself, clenching my fists and feeling the power fluctuations in my body. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Who would knock at this time? I walked to the door and opened it with doubt in my mind. Standing outside the door was Yang Qing, a young lady who lived across from me. Shaolin, you can't tell on weekdays that you have such a good figure. She looked me up and down with surprise in her eyes. Oh, I just do some exercise at home to keep healthy. I said, a little embarrassed. Yang Qing smiled and said, I didn't expect you to have such awareness. However, the wires in my house are burned out and the electrician has closed his stall. Can you help fix it? Okay, I'll go take a look. I agreed, quickly put on my clothes, and went next door with my tools. When I entered Yang Qing's home, I smelled the smell of burning wires. After finding the burnt wire, I asked, Sister Yang, do you have any insulating tape and pliers? Yes, I'll get it. She quickly rummaged through the cupboard and poured me a glass of water. I checked the switch, turned off the power, and stood on a chair to fix the wires. Yang Qing supported me, and her body was very close to me, making me feel a little uncomfortable. Sister Yang, this is fine. I can stand steadily. I smiled awkwardly. It's okay, I'll hold you up. It would be bad if you fell down. Yang Qing said, twisting her body slightly. This made me feel even more uncomfortable. I hurriedly fixed the wires and restored the power. Sister Yang, I won't bother you anymore. I'm leaving now. Hey, come on, stay for lunch, she shouted quickly. No need, Sister Yang. I almost ran back to my room, secretly breathing a sigh of relief. When I got home, I let out a long breath and sighed, such a perfect body actually has such a side effect. I wiped the sweat from my forehead, the corners of my mouth twitched, and I sighed at my wonderful experience today. At 6:30 in the evening, in the brightly lit city, my supercar, Pagani Huayra, slowly stopped by the roadside. The window slid down and my eyes fell on Chen Ziruo. Her changes made me brighten up. Chen Ziruo's outfit today is stunning. She is wearing a black evening dress, a silver diamond necklace on her neck, and a Hermes bag on her wrist. With her light makeup, she is like a striking landscape. Get in the car, I said. She walked over with a smile outside the car window, opened the door gracefully and got in. The atmosphere in the car immediately became relaxed and cheerful. Chen Ziruo adjusted her dress and said softly, Boss Lin, what do you think of my outfit today? No problem at all. With your aura today, you will definitely become the focus of the whole party. I said with a smile, with a hint of appreciation in my words. Chen Ziruo had a smug smile on his face, and then said, Boss Lin is really good at saying nice things. We drove to Jinyuan Commercial Street. Passers-by looked at us from time to time and said, "This car is a Pagani function. It seems that a top rich man has come." At this moment, I noticed Fong Lin standing beside me, with a cold look in his eyes. Fong Lin whispered to Fong Shang beside him, "Brother, this is the car." Fong Shang's eyes fixed, and he responded coldly, "Got it." Then, he took out his cell phone and dialed a number. "Hey, Liuzi, stop being a security guard, bring a few brothers down and teach that guy a lesson." After hanging up the phone, Fong Lin asked worriedly, "Brother, is everything really okay?" "That person." Fong Sheng sneered and said calmly, "Don't worry, if this car is genuine, how many of them can there be in the world? It must be a replica." After hearing this, Fong Lin felt relieved, and a hint of anticipation appeared in his eyes. In the car, I watched Chen Zirua getting ready to leave and whispered to her, "Don't be nervous, you are beautiful." Chen Zirua smiled lightly, his expression relaxed. "Thank you, Mr. Lin, I will come as soon as possible." She opened the car door and got out. There were exclamations all around her. "Wow, what a beauty, is this the daughter of some wealthy family? Hurry up, follow me." I watched her figure gradually disappear in the lobby before I started to park the car. Most of the people around me were attracted by her light, and no one noticed me as the driver. Fong Lin and Fong Shang were in the car far away, looking at me, feeling very angry. Fong Lin snorted coldly, "You are just a driver, you really look down on us." Fong Shang's cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and said coldly, "Lu Zi, make sure that man is blocked in the parking lot and come down immediately." After hanging up the phone, Fong Shang looked coldly at the parking lot he was about to arrive at, with a cold smile on his face. I wonder what kind of trouble will happen at tonight's cocktail party. The evening air was filled with a cool breeze. I had just gotten out of the car and was about to leave the parking lot. Suddenly, a group of people in security uniforms blocked my way. I frowned slightly and asked coldly, "What do you want to do?" The security guard at the front looked down at me and smiled coldly, "Nothing, our boss asked you to wait for him here." My brows furrowed even more. "Your boss?" "I don't know him, get out of the way immediately." Just as he finished speaking, a cold voice came from outside the parking lot. "It seems that Mr. Lin is really a forgetful person. Yesterday, he asked my brother to inform my father that he was coming to apologize to you today. You are so shameless." As the voice fell, the security guard stepped aside. I saw Fong Shang walking towards me with his hands behind his back, while Fong Lin next to him looked at me with a contemptuous smile. "Ha, aren't you very arrogant? I thought you were some big shot, but you're just a lousy driver." I glanced at the two people in front of me and said calmly, "It seems that you didn't take my words to heart." Fong Lin was stunned for a moment, then sneered, "He's just a driver, how dare he be so arrogant?" At this moment, Liuzi couldn't help it anymore. He rushed towards me and threw a punch. I dodged it nimbly, as light as a swallow. My perfect body not only greatly increased my muscle strength, but also greatly improved my reaction speed. Didn't hit it? Come on, all of you. Liuzi's roar attracted more people to rush towards me. Facing these people, I took a deep breath and became more focused. I dodged left and right, seized an opportunity, and kicked out, and immediately a security guard was kicked out. After a few kicks, each security guard was kicked out like a ball, and the scene was in chaos. Fuck! You dared to attack me? Lu Zi was furious. He pulled out a baton from his waist and hit me hard. I smiled coldly and grabbed his wrist suddenly. The powerful force made his hand bones creak. He let go painfully and the baton fell to the ground. I swung it back and hit Lu Zi so hard that his head was bleeding and he was in a mess. I threw the baton away, stretched my muscles, and looked at the two men coldly. You are really brave to attack me. Fong Shang's face turned pale, he couldn't believe his eyes. Liu Zi was his strongest fighter, he could easily fight 6 people alone, but I easily defeated him. His anger and humiliation made him almost unable to control himself. Fong Lin's legs were shaking, his crotch was wet, and he was obviously scared out of his wits. Facing all this, I said coldly, I'll give you 3 minutes to get your father to come to me immediately, otherwise you will bear the consequences. Fong Shang reluctantly took out his cell phone, called his father Fong Yuanlong, and hurriedly told him what had happened. Fong Yuanlong on the other end of the phone heard what had happened and rushed over immediately in anger. Not long after, Fong Yuanlong arrived in a hurry. He looked at me angrily and said, "Asshole. How dare you, a driver like you, humiliate our Fong family like this? Do you really think our Fong family is a soft persimmon?" The people behind Fong Yuanlong also began to whisper, noticing the car under me and realizing that I might be Chen Zirua's driver. They looked at me with curiosity and confusion in their eyes. I responded coldly, "Before you blame me, why not ask what your sons did first? They were arrogant and domineering outside and hit me. If you don't educate them, I don't mind educating them for you." Fong Yuanlong's face turned cold instantly. "Even if my son did something wrong, how to educate him is my business. It is not your turn as a driver to intervene. If you don't give me an explanation today, you and your master will never leave here." I shook my head helplessly, sighed, and continued, "I thought you would be sensible as a father, but I didn't expect you to be so overbearing. It seems that your son's behavior is just a microcosm of your way of dealing with people." Fong Yuanlong was enraged by my words. His face twisted and he roared, "You bastard." I immediately took out my cell phone and called Wu Ming, "Come to the parking lot in the inner garden." Wu Ming on the other end of the phone heard my cold tone, cold sweat broke out on his back, and he immediately agreed, "Yes." Not long after, Wu Ming rushed to the parking lot and saw me sitting on the hood of the car. He immediately walked up to me respectfully and said, "Boss." When Fong Yuanlong saw Wu Ming coming, his expression suddenly became complicated. He obviously didn't expect that I could call a person like Wu Ming. In the entire Jinyuan commercial street, who dared not give Wu Ming face? Seeing this scene, Fong Yuanlong's face became more gloomy. Obviously, my confidence had already made him feel truly scared. I had just parked the car and was about to leave when I found a group of people in security uniforms blocking my way. Frowning slightly, I asked in a cold voice, "What do you want to do?" The sixth child standing in the front sneered, "Nothing, our boss asked you to wait for him here." "Your boss?" "I don't know him, get out of the way immediately." I gave the order directly, trying to get rid of these obstructions. At this moment, a cold voice came from a distance, "Mr. Lin, it seems that you really forget things. Yesterday, I asked my brother to inform my father that I want to apologize to you today." As soon as he finished speaking, the gangsters made way, revealing Fong Shang. Fong Shang walked over with his hands behind his back, saying coldly, Weren't you very arrogant yesterday? You thought you were some big shot, but you turned out to be just a lousy driver." I glanced at Fong Shang and Fong Lin and said calmly, "It seems that you didn't take my words to heart." Fong Lin sneered, "You're just a lousy driver, do you really take yourself seriously?" At this moment, Liuzi had already thrown a punch at me. I moved to the side and easily dodged the blow. Relying on my perfect figure and strong reaction speed, I avoided his attack. Damn! I didn't hit him? Come on, all of you. Liuzi gave an order and the thugs rushed towards me in unison. I took a deep breath, focused my expression, dodged quickly, and found the right moment to counterattack. I kicked out, almost one by one, and all the thugs were kicked away. Liuzi was enraged, and he took out a baton and swung it at me. I looked at him coldly, grabbed his wrist, and squeezed his hand until his bones creaked. The baton fell into my hand, and I swung it back and hit Liuzi's head hard, hitting him so hard that his head was bleeding and he fell to the ground. Fong Shang and Fong Lin were stunned. Fong Shang's expression changed from surprise to anger. He shouted angrily, "How dare you touch my people and threaten me? When my father comes, he will never let you go." I looked at him coldly, "I'll give you 3 minutes to get your father here immediately, otherwise you will bear the consequences." Fong Shang called his father, and Fong Yuanlong rushed over immediately. When he arrived, he saw me sitting on the hood of the car, and some of the bosses around me began to surround me with flattering smiles on their faces. Fong Yuanlong's face gradually turned pale, and he immediately stepped forward and smiled, Misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding." I smiled coldly. Why do I remember someone just said that I can't leave this parking lot? Fong Yuanlong's smile was somewhat bitter. Mr. Lin, this is indeed a misunderstanding. How about I set up a banquet in 2 days to apologize to you? Apologize? I lowered my eyes and continued, that's not necessary. Wu Ming, check the rent of Junzheng life insurance. Yes. Wu Ming took action immediately. A few minutes later, Wu Ming turned around with a bit of pity on his face. Junzheng life insurance only paid part of the rent last quarter, and it's still in arrears this quarter. I nodded and got off the hood. Pay the rent in full within 3 days, and then leave at your own convenience. What? Mr. Lin, I already. Fong Yuanlong's forehead was covered with sweat and his face was pale. Boss Fong, the rental contract is protected by law. You breached the contract first and then broke your promise. I am now notifying you that you must pay the full rent within 3 days, otherwise you will move out. I said coldly. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, and Fong Yuanlong was so shocked that he could hardly breathe. Although the office buildings in Jinyuan Commercial Street were expensive, they were also a symbol of status. Being driven away would be a fatal blow to Junzheng life insurance. Also, Wu Ming, check who hired these security guards. Letting these thugs infiltrate the security team is simply a discredit to our image. I instructed coldly. Wu Ming nodded and left, while Fong Yuanlong stood there blankly. Fong Sheng and Fong Lin had already collapsed to the ground, with shock and fear mixed together. Fong Yuanlong was so angry that he turned around and beat his 2 sons violently. Bursts of shrill screams were heard in the parking lot. Everything went on as usual at the reception, but I became the focus of the whole place. Chen Zirua was standing next to me, and although he also attracted a lot of attention, he was not as much as I was. Finally, with the help of Chen Zirua, I left the venue early. Gradually, I felt a little dizzy, but this storm made me feel extremely refreshed. After I helped Lin Chen into the car, I couldn't help but smile bitterly at the sight of him being drunk and unconscious. As his personal secretary, I'm used to this kind of situation, but Lin Chen's alcohol tolerance is really frustrating. He drank every sip of wine so seriously, which also reflects his honesty in doing things, which is completely different from those who just pretend to do things. Fortunately, I came prepared, not only brought my driver's license, but also only drank a few glasses of juice, otherwise I would probably have to find a hotel tonight. Mr. Lin, where do you live? I'll take you home. I asked him while driving. Room 302, Building 17, Nanliwan Community. Lin Chen answered in a daze. I followed the navigation to his residence, and I had a hunch. Sure enough, when I arrived at Nanliwan Community, I saw that Lin Chen's home was actually in an old community. The 60 square meter house was messy and the living conditions were much worse than I expected. Looking around, I felt a mixed feeling in my heart, but I decided to help clean up first. Look at how dirty this coffee table is. I said to myself as I cleaned it, ugh, stinky socks, they stink to death. While cleaning, I couldn't help but sigh, is this a personal secretary or a personal assistant? If it weren't for the considerable overtime pay, I really wouldn't want to do these trivial tasks. It was late at night, and Lin Chen woke up in a daze. He went into the bathroom and saw me lying on the sofa. He was so scared that he almost screamed. After he rubbed his eyes and confirmed that it was me, a warm smile appeared on his face. At this moment, a warm ripple appeared in my heart. Lin Chen squatted down, gently covered me with a blanket, and went back to sleep. His small move made me feel extremely relieved. The next morning, Lin Chen woke up and found that I had left. There was a box outside the door, and inside was an extremely fancy watch. I saw that he was obviously confused about the watch, and I felt helpless. What the hell is this? Lin Chen muttered to himself, threw his watch aside, and went into the bathroom to take a shower. He was completely unaware of the embarrassment that was about to happen, leaving the door open and humming a little tune. However, just as he was taking a shower, I walked into the room with breakfast. The moment the door was pushed open, Lin Chen turned his head, our eyes collided, and the air froze instantly. My heartbeat accelerated, and screams echoed in the room. The whole scene was both embarrassing and ridiculous. I opened my eyes and suddenly saw a figure standing at the bathroom door. My heartbeat accelerated instantly. I heard a scream, and the door was pushed open. Chen Zirua's pretty face showed shock and shame. She grabbed the shopping bag and looked at me in panic, repeating, "Boss Lin, this watch." Fuck! I reacted quickly and instinctively, ran into the bathroom, slammed the door shut, and my heart was pounding. That scene just now was so exciting. It was unbelievable, this kind of accident was so unexpected. Chen Zirua's voice came from outside, with a hint of shyness and panic. "Boss Lin's figure is so perfect." I stayed in the bathroom for a few seconds, took a deep breath, and tried to calm down. The unexpected encounter just now made me unable to calm down for a while. Suddenly realizing that there was someone outside, I quickly wrapped myself in a bath towel and prepared to go out to check the situation. "What's wrong?" I hurried out of the bathroom and saw Chen Zirua holding a strange watch, his face flushed and excited. "Boss Lin, this watch." Her eyes revealed excitement and astonishment, while I looked at her in bewilderment. The value of the watch was almost unbelievable to me. This watch is the Richard Millman's Earth Series RM056. It is a watch for the 10th anniversary of Richard Mill. The current market value is as high as 23 million. Chen Zirua's voice was almost trembling with excitement. I was stunned. 23 million? This price was scary. Although this watch was extremely expensive, I wanted more actual financial support than cash. It would be more practical to exchange such an expensive watch for cash. But I won this luxury item in the lottery for several consecutive days. It seemed that fate was playing a trick on me. "Oh, sorry, Mr. Lin." Chen Zirua suddenly came to his senses and quickly handed me the watch. I just felt embarrassed about this watch. "I shouldn't touch your things casually." "It's okay." I took the watch casually and threw it on the sofa. It's not something particularly expensive anyway. Seeing my nonchalant reaction, Chen Zirua's eyes twitched. She actually saw a top-notch watch worth 23 million. This kind of watch is a family heirloom in the circle of wealthy people. Almost no one would just leave it on the sofa like this. At this moment, her three views were about to collapse. Chen Zirua's eyes were filled with astonishment, disbelief, and a little admiration. She was obviously shocked by my indifference. To her, this watch was not only a symbol of luxury, but also an impact on my attitude towards life. I smiled, but I felt helpless. For me, although this kind of watch is expensive, it really can't make a living. In life, real things are more important. More than 10 minutes later, I walked out of the room again and changed into fresh clothes. After breakfast, Chen Zirua left. I lazily lay on the sofa and began to browse the listings. The plan to buy a new house did not go smoothly. Either the location was bad or it did not meet the conditions for moving in. What a hassle. I shook my head helplessly and went to bed directly after dinner. The next morning, I started signing in as usual. System, sign in. Congratulations to the host, you have signed in successfully. You have obtained Jinqiu Yiting Community. I stared at the system prompt blankly, feeling confused. What the hell? The entire community is under my name? Just as I was still thinking, the phone suddenly rang. Hello, we are the sales office of Jinqiu Yiting Community. Are you Mr. Lin? The voice on the other end of the phone was very formal. Yes, it's me. Okay, Mr. Lin, your property certificate has been processed. When would it be convenient for you to come over for inspection? Send me the address. I'm free today. After hanging up the phone, I received the address information. Soon, I called Chen Zirua. Boss. Zirua, has the commercial vehicle I asked you to buy arrived? Arrive. Okay, then drive over here, I need it. Understood, boss. Chen Zirua drove a Volkswagen MPV with a luxurious interior to my residence. It just so happened that I didn't want to drive the Pagani, which was not suitable for transporting documents. Let's go to Jinxiu Yiting. Okay, Mr. Lin. Chen Zirua responded and drove. By the way, do you know Jinxiu Yiting? I asked her. I know. It's a high-end residential complex of Shanghai. Chen Zirua replied. Well, sort of. I own a couple of properties there. We soon arrived at the sales office of Jinxiu Yiting. Chen Zirua and I got out of the car and called Qianming, the sales manager. He arrived quickly and took us into the office. Hello, Mr. Lin, I am Qianming. Qianming said with a smile. Hello. I responded calmly. Qianming was surprised. He didn't expect such a young rich man to buy the entire community. After entering the office, I saw the floor was full of property certificates. Mr. Lin, here is your property certificate. There are 1,200 properties in the entire Jinxiu Yiting community, and all the houses have been finely decorated according to your requirements. Here are all your house keys. I looked at these property certificates and felt shocked. The total value of the community was 5 billion yuan at that time, and now it has risen to 11.5 billion yuan. 11.5 billion? I was so surprised that I could hardly speak. The house price rose so fast, it was beyond my imagination. Chen Zirua was dumbfounded, and then he understood why I needed a business car. A supercar could not hold so many real estate certificates. Qianming continued, Mr. Lin, what do you plan to do with these properties? Rent them out or sell them? I thought about it and said, rent. Qianming's eyes lit up. There are many intermediary channels here. If you trust me, I can take you to have a look. Okay, my secretary will handle this. Qianming immediately showed a satisfied smile. Excluding the one I live in, there are still 1,199 houses left, all of which are exclusive and good resources. After the handover, I decided to move into my new home. Chen Zirua and I moved the property certificates to the car and headed to the community. After entering the underground garage, we moved 2 large bundles of property certificates upstairs one by one. I began to look around the new house. It was a large flat on the top floor, with first-class decoration and a great view. Standing on the balcony, I could almost see the entire Jiangdong New district of Shanghai. It's so shocking. I murmured to myself, with excitement shining in my eyes. The room was fully equipped with top-grade home appliances and furniture, especially the sofa, which was very expensive. I lay on the bed and felt more satisfied than ever before. From today on, this is my home. Wait, I have to move. I suddenly remembered that I needed to clean up the house I rented before. I quickly packed up my belongings and returned the rent. After returning to my new home, I familiarized myself with the various functions of the room. The sky gradually darkened, and the night passed quickly. Today is also the day when my cousin came to Shanghai. The next morning, as soon as I opened my eyes, I knew I had to go to the airport to pick someone up. After washing up and getting ready to go out, Chen Zirua called me. Boss Lin, are you sure you don't need me to help pick you up at the airport? No need, I'll go pick you up at the airport myself. You go get ready at the hotel. Okay, Mr. Lin. After hanging up the phone, I ran straight to the airport. 40 minutes later, my car stopped outside the airport. I leaned against the guardrail leisurely, listening to music in my headphones, waiting for the crowd to pour out. Soon, the flight landed, and I saw my cousin Yi Jingjing in the crowd. Behind her was a group of people, 2 men and 2 women, 2 of whom were obviously a couple, and a boy in Nike clothes who seemed very attentive, but Yi Jingjing did not let him help with the luggage. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief, thankful that my car was big enough, otherwise I really didn't know how to fit them in. When Yi Jingjing saw me, a smile immediately appeared on her face. Elder brother. Jingjing. I responded to her with a faint smile. She introduced excitedly, brother, these are my friends. Liang Rui, Zhao Rulin, her boyfriend Chao Yu, and Deng Hong. I nodded and shook their hands. Let's go. I drove here. Let's go to the restaurant for dinner first, and then arrange accommodation after dinner. Hee, okay. We headed to the garage, and when we got to the car, Deng Hong patted the hood with a look of disdain. Wow, you're driving a Volkswagen? Bro, you're not doing well, are you? You must have spent a lot of money on the plane this time, right? I glanced at him, and the corners of my mouth rose slightly. This is the company's business car, it doesn't have to be too luxurious. Deng Hong sneered, then your company is really not high enough. In my company, even the business cars are Mercedes-Benz worth 600,000 yuan. It's only for face when driving them out. Brother, I advise you to change companies as soon as possible. Yi Jingjing blushed slightly, and immediately said in a tender voice, Deng Hong. It's okay. I smiled, get in the car. Deng Hong proudly opened the car door, but when he saw the interior decoration, he was stunned. The luxurious configuration inside the car made his eyes widen. 3.4-meter wheelbase, 5.304-meter body, electric luxury seats, 42-inch LCD TV, folding table, small refrigerator, everything is available. Oh my god. 1,200,000? Yes, I asked my secretary to buy it. It's a Volkswagen T6 with modified interior. The price is around 1.2 million. The whole audience was in an uproar. Deng Hong's face turned red, and he felt slapped in the face. This car was enough to buy two of his 600,000 yuan Mercedes-Benz. The atmosphere in the car suddenly became awkward, and Deng Hong stopped talking. Yi Jingjing seemed a little stunned and asked, Brother, why do you drive such an expensive car? I resigned some time ago and started my own company. Don't tell your third aunt about this. I replied indifferently. Wow, brother, you actually started a business? What are you doing now? She asked curiously. It's related to finance. Don't ask me about the details. I answered casually. The car drove to Dongjia No. 3 restaurant, one of Shanghai's top entertainment venues, with a golf course next to it. When they arrived at the restaurant, Yi Jingjing was excited, while Deng Hong looked gloomy. Outside the restaurant, Yi Jingjing asked curiously, Brother, restaurants in this place must be very expensive, right? It's okay. I responded casually. Deng Hong immediately interrupted, Jingjing, didn't your brother say that his company is still in the process of starting a business? This kind of restaurant won't be too expensive. I checked, and I'll book a Western restaurant for everyone tonight with an average of over 1,000 yuan per person. Ha, brother Deng is awesome. Chow Yu said loudly. Deng Hong looked at me proudly and said, How about it, brother? Do you want to go together tonight? I smiled and said, No thanks. I'm treating you today so that you don't think my company is not qualified. Chen Ziruo came over at this time. Boss Lin, you are here. We have booked room 1 at Dongjia No. 3, and the average consumption per person is 2,300. Deng Hong was petrified when he heard this. It turned out that the restaurant I invited him to was much more expensive than the one he had booked. Chen Ziruo led us into the private room. Deng Hong couldn't hide the embarrassment on his face, but I was calm and composed. Today, in Dongjia No. 3 restaurant, I, Lin Chen, was originally just an ordinary entrepreneur, but a seemingly ordinary dinner made me the focus of everyone's attention. The restaurant's decoration is simple yet elegant, and the air is filled with a strong artistic atmosphere. Sitting in room 1, my friends and I were enjoying the food. At this time, Deng Hong was proudly talking about the 20,000 yuan Romanée-Conti red wine his uncle brought back from abroad, claiming that it was a top-notch treasure. His boasting was annoying, but I didn't think so. However, just as he was talking, the door of the private room was pushed open. The manager of Dongjia No. 3 restaurant came in with 3 waitresses, holding a bottle of red wine. The manager apologized to me respectfully and handed me the bottle of wine. Mr. Lin, this bottle of wine is specially given to you by our boss. I frowned, my heart full of doubts. I don't seem to know your boss. The manager explained that I had met their boss once at a wine party, but since the boss was not in the store, he gave me this bottle of Romanée-Conti Grand Cru red wine as an apology. I nodded, accepted the gift, and said I would treat the boss to a meal next time. At this moment, Deng Hong's face changed instantly. The shock and fear in his eyes could hardly be concealed. It turned out that this bottle of red wine was a top-quality treasure worth 100,000 yuan. It was more than double the 20,000 yuan red wine he boasted before. His shock made him unable to control himself, and he slapped himself in the face in the private room, feeling deeply remorseful. "Brother Lin, I was wrong." Deng Hong burst into tears, completely losing his previous confidence. This scene stunned everyone present, and their previous arrogance and publicity instantly disappeared in front of this bottle of wine. I said calmly, "I will not pursue the matter this time for my cousin's sake. But you have to remember that not everyone can be offended at will." Deng Hong nodded repeatedly, his expression full of fear and regret. His smile had long since disappeared, and the people around him also became particularly reserved because of my identity. After the bottle was opened, the atmosphere gradually returned to normal. However, Chen Ziruo's arrival caused another shock. "Mr. Lin, we have found a lessor for your property in Jingxiu Yiding. The rent for each room is 300,000, and the total annual rental income is expected to reach 360 million. This news stunned everyone present. 360 million in annual rental income meant that the number of properties I owned far exceeded their imagination. My previously low-key image was completely overturned in an instant, and my wealth and status were re-evaluated. Yi Jingjing looked at me, speechless with shock. She knew she had looked down on me, but now the facts made her re-evaluate her views. Liang Rui was extremely embarrassed after learning my true identity. She had pretended to be a poor drinker to get close to me, but she ended up in a state of embarrassment. In the end, she could only watch others enjoy the bottle of red wine worth 100,000 yuan. She secretly lamented that she had brought this upon herself, her face turned purple, and she could not hide her pain. At this moment, Liang Rui's heart was churning. She felt that she had not only lost 100 million yuan in money, but also suffered humiliation. I went from being an ordinary cousin to a wealthy man who could not be underestimated. My low profile and secrecy concealed a shocking secret, and all this was just the beginning. An hour later, our dinner party was over. The laughter and chatter at the table gradually died down, and everyone was immersed in the afterglow of the delicious food and wine. However, compared with the cheerful atmosphere, Liang Rui looked embarrassed, and her face was uglier than the boiled water she drank. Tears welled up in her heart, but she could only watch it all with a wry smile. Because I had drunk, I naturally gave the car to Chen Zirua to drive. She also carefully arranged the hotel, the Peninsula Hotel on the Bund. The most luxurious hotel in Shanghai, the room rate per night is as high as 50,000. When we arrived, the scene in front of us was shocking. In front of us was a magnificent forest garden, sculptures and fountains complemented each other. We could hardly believe it was real. Seeing such a luxurious hotel, my friends were dumbfounded and speechless with excitement. Liang Rui's eyes showed her determination. She decided to ask me about my preferences after returning. No matter what, she would seize this opportunity and hold my thigh tightly. I was very satisfied with Chen Zirua's arrangement. I drove home and lay on the sofa, feeling relieved. I played games. I like staying at home. If I don't play games, I always feel bored. When preparing dinner, I found that there were not enough dishes at home, so I decided to go to the mall to buy some. After going downstairs, I drove my Pagani Fengshan to the nearby shopping mall. Jingxiu Yiding has a great location and complete surrounding facilities. I bought drinks, snacks, meat, and vegetables in the mall, spending a total of 3,000 yuan. Just as I was about to leave with my shopping bags, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Lin Chen?" I turned around and saw that it was my college classmate Ma Siming. We had an average relationship in college, and he always liked to brag about himself. Ma Siming was obviously a little surprised to see me. "Lin Chen, what a coincidence. You bought so many things, did someone come to your house?" I smiled and said, "No, I just moved." "Do you live around here too?" Ma Siming nodded, indicating that he had just bought a house in Shanghai. Hearing him proudly say that he bought a house and got married right after graduation, he seemed quite proud. His sense of superiority made people smile. It seems that we live quite close, how about I give you a ride? Ma Siming was surprised at the BMW I owned, but he didn't pay much attention to the Pagani Huayra I parked in the parking lot. After all, I was not prominent in college. He casually said, "Did you buy a car?" "Well, I just bought one at random," I replied casually. Ma Siming glanced at the small BMW worth 300,000 yuan, but he didn't expect that when the door was opened, the lights of the Pagani function would light up. Ma Siming was stunned for a moment, staring at the supercar worth tens of millions of yuan, and the shock on his face was hard to hide. "This car?" he asked stutteringly. "What's wrong?" "Get in the car." I opened the door, threw the shopping bag on the back seat, and sat in the passenger seat. Ma Siming got in the car with a little fear. At this time, his mind was full of surprise. This Lin Chen actually has such wealth? My family, is it really an ordinary family? Ma Siming remained silent along the way. When I arrived in front of Jingxiu Yiding, I ran into Qianming, the sales manager, and Zhao Weiming from Dijia Real Estate. When they saw me, they immediately ran over to say hello. Zhao Weiming said bluntly, "Mr. Lin, the annual rent for each of your 1,199 units is 300,000 yuan. Please sign to confirm." I quickly glanced at the contract, confirmed it was correct, and signed it. After Zhao Weiming and Qian Ming left, Ma Siming stood aside, shocked. "Lin Chen, this entire Jingxiu Yiding is yours?" I smiled shyly. "Yeah, that's about it." Then I got in the car and left, while Ma Siming stayed where he was, confused. If this was an ordinary family, then what was I? In his eyes, my ordinary family had become extremely outrageous. In the car, I couldn't help but laugh, but I already knew in my heart that at this moment, he found out that he had blocked the university classmates group for a long time, and he was already blown away. In the morning, I was awakened by the system's sign-in bell, and I signed in as usual. Today's reward turned out to be 9 consecutive Rolls-Royce ghosts. To be honest, I'm not too interested in this kind of luxury, especially 9 of them. I don't even have the chance to drive one by myself. This system's reward is really a bit too much. I shook my head, thinking cash was more practical. After washing up, I ate a bowl of rice noodles, then returned home, turned on the TV and planned to spend a leisurely day. But not long after, my cell phone rang. It was my high school classmate Lu Qi. "Hello, Lao Lu, what's the matter?" I answered the phone with a hint of relief in my voice. "What are you doing over the weekend, kid? Are you looking for seeds at home again?" Lu Qi's voice was somewhat teasing. "Go away, you are the one looking for seeds." "I'm just at home watching TV, what's wrong?" I replied, still feeling relaxed. Sure, let's go out for dinner. I'll send you the address." I received the message, looked at the familiar address of the skewer's shop, and decided to drive over. Since we are old friends, I was still as casual as always. But this time, I decided to drive a low-key Rolls-Royce Ghost. After all, I didn't want to be too conspicuous. I parked the car in front of the skewer's shop, and when I walked in, Lu Qi was already sitting by the window waiting for me. When he saw me get out of the car, he was obviously stunned for a moment, and then his face was full of shock. "What are you looking at?" I patted his shoulder and greeted him after sitting down. Lu Qi looked confused, pointed outside and asked, "Is that your car?" "Yeah," I replied calmly, not wanting to say anything more. "How much does the car cost?" Lu Qi continued to ask. 5 million or so. I answered casually after taking a sip of water leisurely. Puff. Lu Qi spat out a mouthful of water and asked in surprise, 5 million? Can you afford it? I smiled helplessly and didn't explain much. He knew about me and the car, and knew that I probably had some money, but he didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. After all, among old friends, if we don't talk about money, we can have a meal with peace of mind. Were you fired recently? Why didn't I hear you mention it? Lu Qi slowly regained his composure and asked. It's okay, I'm fine. I answered lightly. While we were chatting, Luci's eyes suddenly changed and he looked behind me. A well-dressed man came in with a contract in his hand and walked straight towards me.
Mr. Lin, I'm Zhao Weiming, the manager of DGA Real Estate.
We have already discussed the property you want to rent out.
Please sign it.
He handed over the contract. I casually glanced at the contract, confirmed it was correct, and signed it. After Zhao Weiming left, Luci was completely stunned.
Lin Chen, are you saying these properties are all yours?
Luci asked stutteringly. I nodded, then took out my cell phone from my pocket and showed him a photo, 100 bundles of property deeds, with the word Lin Chen clearly written on each one. Luci's eyes widened, he couldn't believe it at all. The serial number of the Rolls-Royce Ghost and the name on the property book were all showing him a fact: Lin Chen, was no longer the boy from an ordinary family.
Wow! Are you really a hidden rich man? This is simply too crazy.
Luci muttered to himself, and the shock in his heart was obvious.
I just smiled calmly and said no more.
It was enough for old friends to talk to this extent.
Next, I continued to enjoy this ordinary lunch with Luci.
At this time, my cell phone rang. Messages from the Penguin group kept pouring in. It seemed that the group of pretentious classmates had been shocked by my new identity. I never thought that we would have to go shopping in a skewer's shop here. I picked up a skewer and looked at the familiar face opposite me, Luci. We all know that he has been very busy recently, and the wedding preparations are really a headache. TSK, how come you got fired?
Now you run off to start a side job at a leasing company?
I laughed and shook my head.
Don't mention it, it's in the past.
Luci waved his hand, then turned his eyes and said with a hint of sarcasm, by the way, I heard that you and your girlfriend are engaged, right? As I savored the skewers, I glanced at Luci and raised my lips slightly. Luci was a straightforward guy, and he was indeed engaged.
Ha, that's right, the wedding is in a few days.
Luci said proudly with a smile on his face. I couldn't help but be surprised. Oh, you are too secretive, aren't you?
You didn't even tell me that you were getting married soon.
But now it seems I have to call you sister-in-law.
It's been really busy lately.
All the wedding preparations are overwhelming.
Luci sighed, especially the fleet issue. That woman Wulan came to show off again today and asked me to switch to a Bentley fleet. Hearing this, I frowned. Although Luci was complaining, I knew the problem was serious. His fiancée Yuan Kir was very concerned about Wulan's show-off, especially at an occasion like a wedding.
Have you solved your fleet problem?
I asked with a smile. You know what? I really have a way.
Luci's eyes lit up. I happen to have a fleet of cars under my command.
Are you going to take out your Rolls-Royce Ghost?
Yeah. I nodded and pointed at the luxury cars outside the door.
I can give you the best price. 3,000 a car.
There are 9 Gusts in total, and a Pagani Function as the lead car.
Luci was stunned when he heard this, his mouth opened wide. Shinzi, are you serious? 3,000 for a car? And with a Pagani?
Of course.
I smiled. What's the relationship between us? I won't cheat you.
After hearing this, Luci was very excited. Thank you so much. This really saved my life. I will call my sister-in-law to confirm with the team. Yuan Kir on the other end of the phone received the news, her tone full of surprise and doubt. Luci, a fleet of Rolls-Royce?
Do you know how high the price will be?
Luci patiently explained, don't worry, this price is the internal price given by my brother, it is absolutely reliable.
Okay then. Yuan Kor finally agreed. After Luci hung up the phone, he looked at me excitedly. Shinzi, you are so awesome.
I will make good arrangements for these 9 Gusts. Don't worry, I will take care of this. I smiled. As for the Pagani, I will also arrange it for you. After dinner, I called Chen Zirua and arranged a few drivers. I also decided to be the lead driver myself to add brilliance to Luci's wedding. After all, it was my friend's wedding, so I had to do my best. When I got home, I found that my phone was out of battery,
but luckily the charger was plugged in. At this time, I put on the watch. Although it looked ordinary, its value was not low. Then, I went to the mall to buy clothes and happened to meet Lou Lily. She was trying on clothes and saw me. Her face turned red. "Mr. Lin, you are here too?" "Well, I'm here to buy a formal suit for a friend's wedding the day after tomorrow," I said as I tried to find some suitable clothes. Lou Lily's face turned even redder, and her reaction surprised me. "You want me to help you pick?" "If you have time, thank you," I said with a smile. Lou Lily blushed slightly but quickly regained her composure. "Of course, no problem." At this time, a cosmetics anchor was live streaming in the mall. When she saw us coming in, her eyes lit up. She immediately came over and pointed the microphone at me. "Excuse me, handsome guy, if you have 10 million in your card, would you be willing to spend half to buy lipstick for your girlfriend?" I was so amused by this sudden question that Lou Lily also looked a little embarrassed. Looking at her red face, I couldn't help but feel a little funny. When I walked into the mall, I was about to choose a suitable formal suit when I was suddenly attracted by a commotion. A female anchor selling cosmetics was broadcasting live nearby, which had obviously attracted the attention of many passers-by. Her high-pitched voice echoed in the mall, which aroused my curiosity. "Excuse me, handsome guy, if you have 10 million in your card, are you willing to spend half of it to buy lipstick for your girlfriend?" Her voice was seductive, and it was obvious that this was one of her live broadcast routines. I was startled and felt a little amused. Then I pretended to ask seriously, 10 million? How much does the lipstick cost? She was stunned for a moment, but quickly adjusted her state and said with a smile, 10 million. I raised my eyebrows and said in surprise, 10 million? How can we live on that? Even if it's hypothetical, it's not realistic. The female anchor was obviously stunned, and probably scolded me in her heart for not following the routine. However, she still managed to keep a smile. "Brother, don't get excited, this is just a hypothesis." "What if?" "What a hypothetical. How poor would you be if you only had 10 million on your card?" I interrupted her without waiting for her to finish. "This outfit I'm wearing is worth more than 10 million. As soon as the voice fell, the salesman and passers-by around showed shocked expressions, and the female anchor was also stunned. Her plan was completely disrupted. Obviously, she didn't expect to meet such a person. I glanced at her and was about to leave, but was stopped by a young man wearing a trendy brand. He looked at the watch on my wrist, his face flushed, and he said excitedly, "Sir, can you show me the watch on your wrist?" I paused for a moment and held out my wrist. "Of course." The young man was getting more and more excited. "This is definitely Richard Mill's RM056. Do you want to sell this watch? I'm willing to pay 50 million. "What?" Everyone around was shocked, and the female anchor's live broadcast room instantly went crazy. "Spending 50 million on a watch? Is that crazy?" someone commented nearby. "Even Patek Philippe can't be sold at this price, right?" another person followed. I couldn't help but laugh. Just as I was about to respond, the female anchor's face turned extremely ugly. Her smile froze on her face, and she began to chatter. Funny. A broken watch sold for 50 million? Hey, brother, can you be more professional before asking for favors?" The trendy young man looked at her coldly and said sternly, "Richard Mille is the world's top watch brand, and the RM056 is the 10th anniversary model, and it is limited to sale worldwide." At this time, a passerby couldn't help but speak up. "This Richard Mille is indeed a top watch brand. The worst model costs 5 or 600,000. Oh my god, this guy's watch is really worth 50 million, another person exclaimed. Seeing this, the female anchor was completely dumbfounded and shouted hysterically, "I don't believe it. I absolutely don't believe it. You are all agents." The manager of the mall also came over. Seeing the young man's appearance, he immediately showed a panicked look and was extremely stern to the female anchor who was selling goods. "Mr. Zhang, why are you here? I'll take care of it right away." Before the manager could finish his words, he gave the order, "Get her out now." The female anchor was completely panicked, her body was cold,
and she realized that she had not only offended the two rich people, but also might lose her job. She was subjected to a crazy war of words in the live broadcast room. Rubbish anchor.
You actually questioned other people's watches. The goods you bring are inferior.
The angry audience vented their dissatisfaction with her, and the live broadcast room was instantly flooded with accusations.
The female anchor's face turned pale. She knew that she had completely failed this time. At that moment, my life was completely turned upside down.
When I walked into the mall, I just wanted to pick out a few suits, but I accidentally passed by Zhang Ming, the young master of Manhwa department store. When he recognized me as the new boss of Jinyuan Commercial Street, my identity seemed to be the trigger. Zhang Ming's surprise and familiar eyes made me realize that I was being paid too much attention to. Perhaps this is the price of being rich. In the mall, Lu Lily and I strolled around and picked up a few high-end suits and accessories. Although she was surprised by me and my purchases, I didn't pay it any attention. Instead, seeing her interest in Prada perfume, I bought her that bottle without hesitation as a small gift for her shopping with me. Her eyes sparkled with gratitude, and I couldn't help but smile. For dinner, I chose a high-end Western restaurant and ordered a 70,000 yuan Medoc classified Lafite dry red wine. Seeing Lu Lily's shock at the price, I smiled in my heart.
Luxurious life is the standard in this circle.
I know that this kind of luxurious life is strange and shocking to her.
After dinner, I arranged for a designated driver to take us home.
The car was worth 5 million yuan, and I saw the driver's shocked expression. Our garage seemed particularly quiet, and those parents who accompanied my child to school seemed to have no idea of my life.
As soon as we got home, Lu Lily and I entered the mansion on the top floor.
Her exclamation filled the whole room, and she was a little overwhelmed by the luxury in front of her. The scale and decoration of this house were obviously beyond her imagination. However, I just laughed it off and casually mentioned the matter of finding a housekeeping service. Her eyes were still wide open, as if she was trying to adapt to this sudden luxury.
As I relaxed on the sofa, Lu Lily approached me.
My hands involuntarily reached for her waist and gently hugged her. Her cheeks flushed and she looked a little nervous. Before I finished speaking, I lowered my head and kissed her lips. At that moment, her body stiffened for a few seconds, and then she gently responded to my kiss. The whole world seemed to disappear at this moment, leaving only the two of us. Her reaction surprised me, but it also made the atmosphere more intense. I gently picked her up and walked towards the bedroom. Her body was light and warm, and she hugged my neck tightly, as if she didn't want to slip out of my arms. Her shyness and attachment became the most beautiful scenery of the night.
In this empty mansion, we enjoyed each other's company to the fullest.
All the troubles, whether it was windy or rainy, seemed to be left behind that night. We were busy until 4 a.m, when we finally fell asleep. The wind and rain that night brought us closer and inadvertently sublimated our relationship. In this seemingly prosperous but hypocritical commercial street, I had just enjoyed a simple dinner and was happily preparing to sign in. At this moment, the system's voice made me smile helplessly. Congratulations to the host, the sign-in was successful.
Obtained, the true meaning of Bajiquan. What is the true meaning of Bajiquan? I couldn't help but laugh in my heart. This era no longer needs traditional martial arts, and I joked, why am I learning Bajiquan in a society ruled by law? This is really a joke. However, I still decided to collect this strange reward. In an instant, a huge amount of information flooded into my mind like a flood, as if I saw the ancient knights using Bajiquan to defeat all enemies on the battlefield. My eyes became heavy, and I decided to go to the newly opened martial arts gym nearby to try the power of Bajiquan. Although this martial arts school teaches Chinese martial arts, due to the changing times, Chinese martial arts have long been marginalized. I was a little disdainful and casually practiced 2 wooden man piles. Just when I hit it with a top elbow, the wooden man pile actually broke with a sound, and wood chips flew everywhere. It turns out that the power of Bajiquan is so amazing. At this time, the martial arts coach of the martial arts hall came in with a cup of wolfberry tea. When he saw the scene, his eyes were stunned for a moment. I thought it was just a new student who came to experience martial arts, but I didn't expect to meet such a powerful guest. I said apologetically, "Sorry, I'll pay for the wooden man." The coach was embarrassed and kept saying it was okay, but in his heart he cursed the guest for coming to challenge the gym. The parents and primary school students were also surprised. At this time, the Taekwondo gym coach Yuan Yi was promoting the martial arts to the primary school students, enthusiastically belittling the national martial arts, saying that Taekwondo is the real Kung Fu. I watched coldly, feeling increasingly dissatisfied. This contemptuous remark made me angry, and I sneered and said, "Pain? This board is just cork, pain? Don't be ridiculous." As soon as he said this, a trace of anger flashed in Yuan Yi's eyes, and he challenged him directly, "If you say your Kung Fu is better than mine, then come on stage and show me how to fight." I walked onto the stage with a cold smile on my face. Yuan Yi kicked me and I blocked it casually. His foot was instantly broken and I knocked him off the stage with my Iron Mountain kick. The whole audience was silent for a moment, and then there was a burst of boos. "That's all? You dare to mock Chinese martial arts? It's a joke. This Chinese martial art is clearly more powerful. Taekwondo is just a fancy trick." Everyone was extremely disappointed with Yuan Yi's performance, but I said indifferently, "It is unforgivable that the national martial arts have been belittled. In the past, the masters of the national martial arts have repeatedly killed the enemies on the battlefield, but now you despise them." At this time, the door of the Taekwondo gym was pushed open, and a young man wearing a trendy brand walked in. He was the owner of this martial arts gym, Zhang Ming. Hearing that his martial arts gym coach was injured, Zhang Ming was furious and immediately walked up to me and said in surprise, "Mr. Lin, I didn't expect it to be you." I was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Is this your martial arts gym?" Zhang Ming nodded and said it was his property, and expressed surprise that I bought the community. Seeing his customer lose his composure, Yuan Yi hurriedly asked Zhang Ming for help, but after learning the truth, Zhang Ming was angry at Yuan Yi's behavior. "People like you have no martial arts ethics, get out of my martial arts hall today." Yuan Yi left reluctantly, and Zhang Ming and I chatted happily. When I left the martial arts hall, the video of me killing Yuan Yi in one move quickly exploded on the internet, and the video went viral, instantly flooding all major platforms and sparking heated discussions. When I walked into this prosperous but hypocritical commercial street, I had just finished a simple dinner and was about to sign in when the system's voice suddenly rang in my ears, "Congratulations host, sign in successfully. Obtained, the true meaning of Bajiquan." The true meaning of Bajiquan? I couldn't help but sneer, and mocked in my heart, "What Bajiquan is needed in this era? Ha, this is simply a joke." But out of curiosity, I decided to collect this strange reward. Suddenly, a huge amount of information flooded into my mind, and I seemed to see the scene of ancient knights using Bajiquan to kill enemies on the battlefield. I couldn't help but feel heavy, and decided to go to the newly opened martial arts gym nearby to try the power of this Bajiquan. Although this martial arts school teaches traditional Chinese martial arts, it has long been out of favor due to the changing times. I was disdainful and casually practiced with the wooden man twice. I saw that the wooden man broke into pieces with a top elbow, and the scattered wood chips surprised me. It turns out that the power of Bajiquan is so fierce. At this time, the martial arts coach of the martial arts school came in with a cup of wolfberry tea. When he saw the scene, his eyes were stunned for a moment. He thought he could attract a student, but he didn't expect to meet such a powerful guest. I said apologetically, "Sorry, I'll pay for the wooden man." The coach was embarrassed and kept saying it was okay, but in his heart he cursed the guest who came to challenge the gym. The parents and primary school students nearby were also surprised. At this time, the Taekwondo gym coach Yuan Yi was promoting to the primary school students, enthusiastically belittling the national martial arts and saying that Taekwondo is the real Kung Fu. Yuan Yi said with a contemptuous look, "Taekwondo is the greatest fighting art in the world. Traditional Kung Fu such as Baji and Taiji are just fancy tricks." He demonstrated the skills of Taekwondo, and the parents and students at the scene cheered. I watched coldly, and I became more and more dissatisfied. This contemptuous speech made me angry. I sneered and said, "Pain? This board is just cork. Pain? Don't be ridiculous." As soon as he finished speaking, a trace of anger flashed in Yuanye's eyes, and he challenged directly, "If you say your kung fu is better than mine, then come on stage and show me how to fight." I walked onto the ring without hesitation, and Yuanye kicked me. I blocked it casually, and Yuanye's foot was instantly broken. He was knocked off the ring by my Iron Mountain kick. The whole audience was silent for a moment, and then burst into boos. "That's all? You dare to mock Chinese martial arts? It's a joke. This Chinese martial art is clearly more powerful. Taekwondo is just a fancy trick." Everyone was extremely disappointed with Yuanye's performance, but I said indifferently, "It is unforgivable that the national martial arts have been belittled. In the past, the masters of the national martial arts have repeatedly killed the enemies on the battlefield, but now you despise them." At this time, the door of the Taekwondo gym was pushed open, and a young man wearing a trendy brand walked in. He was the owner of this martial arts gym, Zhang Ming. Upon hearing that his coach was injured, Zhang Ming was furious, and immediately walked up to me and said in surprise, "Mr. Lin, I didn't expect it to be you." I was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Is this your martial arts gym?" Zhang Ming nodded and said it was his property, and expressed surprise at the community I bought. Seeing his customer lose his composure, Yuanye hurriedly asked Zhang Ming for help. However, after learning the truth, Zhang Ming was angry at Yuanye's behavior. "People like you have no martial arts ethics. Get out of my martial arts hall today." Yuanye left reluctantly, and Zhang Ming and I chatted happily here. As soon as I left the martial arts hall, my video quickly exploded on the internet. The scene of me killing Yuanye in seconds went viral and instantly blew up on major platforms, sparking heated discussions. I returned home and was about to sign in when the system's voice sounded again. "Congratulations, host, you have signed in successfully. You have obtained 7.8% of the shares of Penguin Group." Penguin Group? I was shocked. I checked and found that the current net profit of Penguin Group is 99.8 billion, which means I can get at least billions in dividends every year. This money is like falling from the sky. I gasped, looking shocked. At the same time, when Xiaoma, the chairman of Penguin Group, saw the news in his office, his face instantly darkened. He found that the change in the equity structure did not cause the stock price to fall, but instead soared. He was puzzled and decided to take time to meet me. During this period, I received a call from Lu Qi, who asked me to bring a car to pick up the bride. I changed into a suit, put on a watch, arranged a motorcade, drove a Pagani function in the front, followed by 9 Rolls-Royce Ghosts. Wherever the motorcade passed, the traffic flow avoided it, and for a while, the whole city became our vacuum zone. When Lucy saw the magnificent convoy, he was stunned. "Where did this Pagani Huayra come from?" he exclaimed. "How about it? This car is the lead car. It looks impressive, right?" I said with a smile. Lucci couldn't help but sigh. "If this car gets scratched, I can't afford to pay for it." I rolled my eyes and smiled calmly. "It's okay, I'll put the decals on the car." Finally, the motorcade officially set off, and the surrounding car owners gathered to watch. At the bride's house, Yuan Kur was also amazed at what she saw. However, at this moment, a cry of surprise suddenly rang out there. "Oh my God, look there! This convoy, isn't it coming to pick up Kur?" a young girl exclaimed. Everyone looked at them in surprise. When my aunt forced a smile on her face, I saw the cover-up in her expression. She had just been laughing at Lucci's motorcade, which was just a row of Rolls-Royces, but now the lineup of the motorcade made her smile instantly stiff. She tried to hide her embarrassment, but was completely slapped in the face by the scene in front of her. "Mom, that's not the case. Do you know what this car is? This is a Pagani Huayra. There are only 20 of them in the world and they're worth 100 million. There was a hint of pride in the girl's voice. The room was instantly silent, and everyone was speechless at the luxury of the convoy. Lucci's convoy was not only a row of Rolls-Royces, but the supercar at the front was even more jaw-dropping. As for outside the door, Lucci's face was full of tension. "Shinzi, do you think Kor and the others will embarrass me?" After hearing these words, Lin Chen just smiled faintly and then said, Don't worry, how much more difficult can I make things for you? After hearing these words, Lucci felt more at ease. When Lucci carried the bride out of the door, my aunt's face looked like she had been slapped in the face. She had wanted to show off her family, but was severely counterattacked by Lucci's motorcade. Downstairs, I saw a team of drivers in black suits standing by the car door. I was shocked beyond words. Especially when the Pagani Huayra appeared, the scene almost made me unable to believe my eyes. Although the wedding venue was not far from the community, the luxury of the motorcade was enough to shock people. I sat in the front passenger seat of the function car. Although the car was a bit crowded, it was okay because the wedding venue was nearby. Lucci insisted on standing in the back and was unwilling to let me give up the driving seat. We arrived at the hotel smoothly, and when the banquet began, my presence seemed to be ignored. The people sitting at the table all looked at me with disdain. One young man even asked directly, "Brother, how much did you give in your red envelope?" Before I could answer, another person exposed my true identity: this guy is just a driver. Everyone's ridicule became more obvious at this time, but I chose to remain silent. As the wedding process progressed, Lucci and Yuan Kur began to toast and finally came to our table. Lucci smiled and said, "You have to take good care of my brother. He helped me get this row of cars and that Pagani function." Before I finished speaking, the atmosphere of the entire banquet froze instantly. The original contempt turned into shock, and everyone's eyes widened. Obviously, they didn't expect that I was the mastermind behind this top team. A young man who had laughed at me before came over nervously and punished himself with a glass of wine. I really shouldn't have said too much before. This glass of wine is an apology. After the wedding banquet, Lin Chen asked the drivers to first drive Lucci and Yuan Kur home and then leave with him. Congratulations to the host, signing in successfully. Get Shelby Cobra 427-1966 restored version. Shelby Cobra 427-1966 restored version? What the hell is this? I was curious. After taking a shower, I sat in the study and started searching for information about this car. As the information on the page unfolded, my surprise grew day by day. Shelby Cobra 427, this car is actually the top car in the 1950s. It is named after the legendary driver Carroll Shelby, who won the Le Mans 24 Hours endurance race 6 times between 1969 and 1982 and is known as the immortal legend on the Le Mans track. And this car is his exclusive car. The Cobra 427 was launched in 1966 and became a popular sports car all over the world. The appearance of this car is extremely retro, and the sapphire blue body exudes the atmosphere of Ford classic cars, but the gentlemanlike appearance hides the arrogant and violent factor. Even today, this car is extremely eye-catching. What is shocking is that the car in front of me is not a replica commemorative edition on the market, but a real original. In 2000, a professional team in Detroit spent 3 years carefully restoring it. This means that the market value of this car today is at least tens of millions. I was so excited that I couldn't help but want to experience it myself. I gently tested the accelerator and brake, and after confirming that everything was normal, I started the engine. With a roar, the car slowly moved forward. Although this car is an antique, its performance is still top-notch, thanks to professional restoration. I drove all the way and soon arrived at the building of China Overseas Penguin Group. I parked the car steadily and walked into the building. The receptionist saw me coming in and immediately came up to me. "Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with?" "I'm here to see Xiao Ma Good, Mr. Ma." I answered simply and clearly. The front desk clerk was stunned, then politely asked, "Sir, may I ask your name and reservation status?" I said casually, "Just call him and tell him I'm looking for him." "Okay, Mr. Lin, please wait a moment." The receptionist quickly took action and called Mr. Ma's secretary. Her attitude immediately became respectful and she brought me a cup of coffee. The whispers at the front desk began to emerge. Who is this Mr. Lin? How could Mr. Ma's secretary be so respectful? Xiao Ma Gu was in a video conference in the office. When he heard the secretary knocking on the door, he was a little impatient. "Didn't I tell you not to disturb me during the meeting?" However, the secretary said cautiously, "Mr. Ma, Mr. Lin is here." Xiao Ma's expression suddenly changed. "Well done, the report was timely. Let's end today's meeting here." He quickly turned off the computer, walked out of the office, and asked anxiously, "Where is Mr. Lin now? Take me there." This scene made the senior executives in the video conference stunned. Who is this Mr. Lin that he could make the richest man, Ma Gu, so nervous that he interrupted the meeting to meet him in person? When I walked out of the Penguin Group building, I saw Pony Ma coming down as promised. Pony Ma standing in front of me. Even though I hold 7.8% of the shares of Penguin Group, he is still the actual controller of this giant. His position is incomparable, which makes me feel a little awed. Mr. Lin, I'm so sorry that I'm a little late." Xiao Ma smiled warmly, and was obviously full of courtesy and respect for me. "You came at the right time, so you don't disturb me." "No way, Xiao Ma, your time is precious, how dare I disturb you?" I responded politely, but I was extremely curious about him. The two chatted as they walked into the building. The ladies at the front desk were not able to conceal their astonishment. How could this seemingly ordinary man be greeted by Xiao Ma Gu in person, and with a bit of respect? They felt even more mysterious about my identity. When we got to the top floor, Xiao Ma handed over some tea and said politely, "Mr. Lin, have some tea. You are young and promising." I took a sip of tea and said calmly, "Mr. Ma, you flatter me. I am just an ordinary person who is interested in money. Your company's stock price is expected to rise, and the annual income of my shares is considerable. I have no intention of selling them." Xiao Ma's eyes flickered, and he was obviously a little surprised by what I said. "In that case, I'll be frank. I hope to buy back your shares at a premium." I gently put down my teacup and responded calmly, "Mr. Ma, your company's stock price is rising day by day. 7.8% of the shares can bring me billions of profits every year. I am not interested in the power struggle within the company. I just want annual dividends." After hearing this, Xiao Ma Ji's eyes flashed with surprise, but he quickly regained his smile. "In that case, I won't force you. Happy cooperation." The two shook hands, talked and laughed, and the atmosphere was harmonious. When I left the Penguin building, I suddenly heard a familiar voice behind me. "Lin Chen?" Turning back, I saw a tall girl walking towards me. "Su Jia?" I was a little surprised. She was my high school classmate, but she transferred to another school in her senior year. We met occasionally in college. "Long time no see," Su Jia said with a surprised smile. "Why are you here?" I asked. "I work here," Su Jia replied. "I remember you said you wanted to take the postgraduate entrance examination." I was a little curious. "Yes, but my family is not well off, so I can only work and prepare for the postgraduate entrance examination to supplement the family income," Su Jia explained. We exchanged a few pleasantries and then separated. This scene happened to be seen by Xiao Ma Gu upstairs. His eyes became deep, and he immediately asked his secretary to retrieve Su Jia's information. "Su Jia, come to my office." Brother Xiao Ma gave the order. Su Jia was summoned to the office, her heart full of nervousness and uneasiness. She didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, but seeing the smile on Xiao Ma Ji's face, she still plucked up the courage to go in. "Don't be nervous, sit down." Xiao Ma gestured for Su Jia to sit down. He took out a document and said calmly, "Su Jia, you have worked in our company for half a year and your performance is good. You were promoted to team leader in less than half a year. Not bad." He continued, "You were a student at Luching No. 3 Middle School when you were in high school?" "Yes, due to family reasons, I transferred to a private school in my senior year of high school," Su Jia replied. "Do you know someone named Lin Chen?" Su Jia was a little stunned. This question seemed unusual. "Lin Chen? I know him. He was my classmate at Luching No. 3 Middle School." Hearing this, Xiao Ma Ji's surprise became more obvious. He smiled and said, "In that case, you will be in charge of Director Lin's affairs." He holds 7.8% of our Penguin Group's shares. Ah. Su Jia was so shocked that she couldn't express it in words. Lin Chen had become such a person? She remembered that when he was in high school, Lin Chen was just a student from an ordinary family. Brother Xiaoma, can I know the specific reason? You are now the manager in charge of Director Lin's affairs. If he has any needs, be sure to report to me immediately. Your salary will also be increased to 23,000. Xiaoma Ji's tone was firm, as if he had deeper considerations. Su Jia nodded blankly, her mind still in a mess. She didn't expect her old classmate to have such amazing achievements, and her future also took a huge turn because of Lin Chen's existence. The midday sun shone through the car window onto the Shibil Cobra I was driving. I drove through the busy streets and finally stopped outside the Yujingxian, the top Chinese restaurant in Shanghai. I walked into the restaurant and ordered a private room, ready to enjoy this precious lunch. The decoration of Yujingxian is elegant and fresh, which is in sharp contrast with its top chef lineup. Zhou Hua, one of the top 10 chefs of Manhwa, is in charge of the state banquet chef here. Even the former US president praised his ramen. I ordered a few signature dishes and enjoyed this unique delicacy while eating. After finishing my meal, I just walked out of the restaurant door and suddenly saw a commotion at the door of the private room not far away. Several female students were screaming, and the Korean star named Kim Dong-wook was watching it all indifferently. The high school students standing in front of me had crazy faces. Despite being treated ruthlessly by Kim Dong-wook, they still madly followed him. "Don't you appa, look at your mother." Their screams came one after another, hurting the eardrums. Jin Dongshu showed disgust on his face and muttered something, "Why are there so many ugly girls? It's an insult to my eyes." I couldn't stand it anymore, so I walked towards Jin Dongshu and grabbed his wrist. "Hey, are you going to leave like this?" I asked. Jin Dongshu responded coldly in broken Chinese, "Don't waste my time, get out of the way." I frowned and saw the high school girl next to me was pushed to the ground, and the gift in her hand was knocked over. Thousands of paper cranes were scattered all over the floor. I was upset and was about to speak, but the high school girl stood up and accused me excitedly, "What nonsense are you talking about?" I didn't stand firmly. What does it have to do with Dongshu appa? Now I was stunned. I was clearly helping her, so how did it become like I was meddling in her affairs? Seeing that I was still interfering, Jin Dongshu became more and more impatient. "Did you see that? Get out of here, you Yenhua pig." My anger was instantly ignited. Although I didn't understand the specific content of his words, I could guess that it was not a good thing. I decided not to tolerate it anymore, and suddenly grabbed Jin Dongshu's wrist and then shook him away with force. "Ah! Dongshu appa!" The high school students who were watching screamed, and Kim Dongshu's bodyguards hurried over to help him up. One bodyguard threatened in broken Chinese, "Asshole, you dare to do this to me? I'm calling the police now." Several high school students also shouted, "Yes, call the police. How dare he hit Dongshu appa, we must lock him up." The situation became somewhat chaotic. The police arrived soon, led by a heroic female police officer, whose arrival quickly attracted everyone's attention. "What's going on here?" she asked in a deep voice. Jin Dongshu immediately accused me, "Officer, I am Jin Dongshu, and I have 12 million fans in your Yenhua. This guy hit me for no reason." I responded calmly, "I attacked him because he attacked several high school girls first and insulted me." The policewoman frowned slightly, as if she found the voice familiar. She took out her phone, opened a video, and then walked over to me, her eyes sparkling with surprise. "It's him," the policewoman exclaimed. She took out her phone and carefully compared the voice in the video with my voice. Obviously, I had become her idol. Her eyes were almost shining with stars, and she said to me excitedly, "Are you the martial arts guy in the video yesterday? The Bajiquan master who beat Taekwondo in the martial arts hall?" I touched my nose awkwardly and nodded, "Yeah, it's me." "Great. I watched that video nearly 100 times yesterday." She said excitedly, "Can I ask you to teach me Bajiquan?" I hesitated for a moment, knowing that this policewoman might have some preference for me, but I still decided to agree to her. Let me teach you a few moves when I have the chance. However, Bajikwan is not easy to learn. She agreed excitedly, and then left amid the puzzled looks of her colleagues. The incident ended with my victory. Jin Dongxiu left with some humiliation and some compensation, and I ended this unexpected experience. After leaving the Penguin Group building, I felt a little irritable. I drove my Shibil Cobra around the streets of Shanghai until noon, when I decided to have lunch at the top Chinese restaurant Yujingshuan. The reputation of this restaurant is well known throughout Shanghai. The Shanghai-style restaurant of Zhou Hua, the state banquet chef, is so popular that even the former US president is crazy about its pudding and fruity steak. Although the restaurant's appearance is not ostentatious, the 3 golden characters Yujingshuan on the door are particularly eye-catching. When dining, I chose a private room and enjoyed this delicious lunch. However, as soon as I stepped out of the restaurant, I encountered an unexpected commotion. At the door of a private room not far away, several high school girls were screaming excitedly, and one girl in school uniform was so excited that she almost jumped up, holding a beautiful gift box in her hand. "Dongxiu, look at mom, look at mom." Her voice was sharp and full of admiration. The Korean star Kim Dong-wook, who was standing in the private room, glanced at them impatiently, his face full of disgust. He glanced at the screaming girls and muttered, "These ugly girls really annoy me. These Yenoa pigs follow me all day long." The high school girls seemed unaware of Jin Dongxiu's disgust and were still fanatical about him. The gift box in one girl's hand was knocked over, and the paper cranes inside were scattered all over the floor, making the scene quite embarrassing. Jin Dongxiu waved his hand coldly and ordered the bodyguards to drive the girls out. "No, Dongxiu Appa." The girl tried to grab the corner of Kim Dongxiu's clothes, but he pushed her to the ground, and the paper cranes were crushed. The other girls around her showed mocking expressions, and they were obviously not surprised by Kim Dongxiu's behavior. Seeing this, I felt a little dissatisfied, so I stepped forward to stop him and grabbed Jin Dongxiu's wrist. "Hey, are you leaving like this?" Jin Dongxiu replied in broken Chinese, "Don't waste my time, get out of the way." The girls behind him were pleasantly surprised and praised Jin Dongxiu's Chinese. The girl who was pushed down also stood up and angrily accused me, "Don't mind my own business. I fell down by accident. It has nothing to do with Dongxiu Appa." This situation made me feel helpless. I wanted to help, but was misunderstood as meddling in other people's business. Jin Dongxiu sneered at me and said, "Did you see that? Get out of here, you Yenoa pig." This sentence made me completely furious. Although I didn't understand the Korean language very well, I could tell from his tone and facial expression that it was an extremely unfriendly remark. I grabbed Jin Dongxiu's wrist tightly and then pushed him aside. "Ah! Dongxiu Appa!" The girl's screams resounded throughout the restaurant. Several bodyguards rushed over and supported Jin Dongxiu. One of the bodyguards shouted at me in broken Chinese, "Asshole, how dare you do that? I'm calling the police now." The girls around also echoed, "Yes, call the police. How dare you hit Dongxiu Appa, you must lock this guy up." Seeing this, I was even more confused. I was clearly helping the girl who was pushed down, but now I became the villain. Just when I was confused, the police finally arrived, led by a heroic female police officer. "What happened here?" the policewoman asked, and the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Jin Dongxiu arrogantly accused me, "This person hit me for no reason and insulted me." I replied calmly, "Before he attacked me, he pushed down several high school students, and then he attacked me and insulted me." Policewoman Xiao Kuei seemed a little surprised when she heard my voice. She suddenly took out her phone and found a video. A look of surprise flashed in her eyes. "Are you the martial arts guy in the video yesterday?" I felt a little embarrassed, but nodded. Xiao Kuei seemed to be a little excited. "I really like you. Can you teach me some Bajikwan?" I hesitated a little, but finally nodded. "If there is a chance in the future, I will take the time to teach you a few moves. However, Bajikwan is not so easy to learn." Xiao Kuei immediately hummed a little song happily and left the restaurant with a smile. The other police officers were puzzled by the performance of this young policewoman, but I was unaware of all this and continued my journey to leave. Behind the scene, Xiaomago was extremely angry about Su Jia's report in Penguin Group and decided to put official pressure through his friends to ban Jin Dongshu. At the same time, Jin Dongshu's agent at Zhonghai TV was still anxious about the sudden appearance of the termination letter, but was facing even more severe pressure to ban him. Lu Yuan's anger roared like thunder, making my ears buzz and my heart so heavy that I almost suffocated. Jin Su. Damn, who did you offend? Lu Yuan's roar came from the other end of the phone, and his angry tone made people shudder. I was stunned, and an uneasy premonition rose in my heart. Mr. Lu, what's wrong with you? Why are you so angry? I tried to stay calm and asked carefully. How dare you ask me what's wrong? Lu Yuan almost threw the phone away. I invited you here to save the reputation of Taekwondo. But you guys are causing trouble for me. I tell you, you better prepare the penalty. Penalty for breach of contract? I was so shocked that I almost fell down. What? I could hardly believe my ears. Jin Dongshu's trip was clearly well planned. How could it suddenly turn out like this? Chairman Lu, what's going on? Why did you suddenly stop filming? I asked anxiously. You have to ask you yourselves about this matter. The most I can tell you is that you have offended someone you shouldn't have offended, and now you are banned nationwide, that's it. Lu Yuan hung up the phone coldly, leaving me in shock and confusion. I looked at Jin Dongshu as if nothing had happened, and the look on his face became even paler. Jin Dongshu's eyes widened, as if he didn't understand what was going on. Brother, what's wrong? He asked in a low voice, his voice full of helplessness and fear. I was so angry that I punched him in the face without mercy. The moment the fist landed, Jin Dongshu covered his face in pain, his eyes full of disbelief. I asked you to cause trouble for me. Who the hell did you offend? Do you know that all our preparations have been wasted because of you? I roared angrily, my heart full of helplessness and resentment. Jin Dongshu knelt on the ground in pain, muttering to himself, how could this happen? How could this happen? I looked at Jin Dongshu's agent, who also had a bitter face, but a glimmer of despair flashed in his eyes. Director, is there any misunderstanding here? Why did you suddenly terminate the contract with us? He tried to find a glimmer of hope, but the director in front of him just shook his head indifferently. You guys better leave quickly, or I'll call security. The director said and left without looking back. The next day, the news that Jin Dongshu was banned nationwide was trending on Weibo, and major legal daily newspapers forwarded and liked it. Although there was an uproar on the internet, Jin Dongshu's crazy fans still shouted to report the authorities, causing constant ridicule on the internet. However, the parade of hundreds of fans had only walked a few hundred meters when they were taken away by the police. I looked at the screen of my phone, with a teasing smile on my face. TSK, these brainless fans. At most I just made it impossible for them to continue to make money in our country, but I didn't expect that they actually wanted him to disappear completely. At this time, Jin Su and Jin Dongshu came to me, their faces full of humility and embarrassment. They had gone to great lengths to find my residence, and had rushed over early in the morning, bowing their heads and apologizing. Jin Su had a flattering smile on his face, and held out a check for 10 million and handed it to me. 10 million, just consider it as my filial gift to you. I hope you can show mercy and let us go. Jin Su's words were filled with flattery and request. I took the check with a smile in my eyes. Since they offered the money voluntarily, I had no reason to refuse. But I planned to see how they would react. Well, 10 million, and let you go? Okay, you guys go back first, I'll think about it. I said lightly. Jin Su showed a hint of joy on her face, and she obviously thought there was still room for maneuver. But Jin Dongshu seemed even more agitated, pointing at me and shouting, who do you think you are? Do you really have to do this to such an extreme? Jin Dongshu's excitement obviously embarrassed Jin Su, and he hurriedly advised, Mr. Lin, please don't mind it, this guy is a little bit stupid. Looking at their performance, I smiled coldly, and my eyes became even colder. In this case, I advise you. If you are mentally ill, go back to Korea. Don't wait for me to change my mind and make sure none of you can leave. Jin Su's face turned pale and he turned away angrily. Although he was angry, he still chose to give in because of my mysterious background. After the agent left, I continued to sit in the chair with mixed feelings. I was a little surprised by the news that I had just signed and successfully 70% of Yuanlong Games equity actually fell into my hands. This company has become famous in the gaming circle, and it has become a part of me. What's more interesting is that my old classmate Lu Chi also works in this company. It seems that I have become Lu Chi's boss. I said to myself, with a slight smile on my face. Should I tell him about this? After weighing the pros and cons in my mind, I decided not to reveal the news for the time being.